So I spoke with our guest, and he is currently in the going to where he's going to be setting up at. So it'll be a little bit late.
Where's he setting up?
He's in
the Hogan?
Toneros.
Oh, he's in. Oh yeah. He's in my territory, huh? Okay. All right.
He should have just
Not
showed
even
up
your
at your house.
territory. Yeah, you guys should have just hung out together.
No, could just butcher the sheep and say, "What's going on in Navajo Nation? Tell me about it." Over
You
some
would've-
soup.
You would have been in his house or in his room. I don't know why you'd be in a politician's room though. Kind of seems like something you would do.
Yeah, I'll invite anybody.
Damn.
Imagine if Hirsch was a girl, he'd probably get a bunch of legislation passed.
Damn, why? Because I sleep around.
Yeah,
Hey,
sleep his way to the top. Damn.
fuck.
He'd be
Well,
passed around.
Hey, you're too toxic towards the women. You know, I take offensive as a man. Don't talk about us like that. We're respectful gentlemen when we're talking on the council floor. Don't be talking about
Are we
me.
on the council floor?
We're on the council meeting.
Yeah.
Guys.
Damn, I didn't realize we're on
Point
the
of
council
order.
floor.
Delegate Black Horse, point of order. Talking all sexist. No, it's not welcome here. Only in executive session. Hey.
When they can't hear. All right, wait. Before we get started, I have a question for you guys.
Yeah, it's over 6. Oh, okay.
If you had to fight if you had a partner, let's say you have a significant other, if you had to fight your partner's brother, he's 25, her 25-year-old brother, or you have to fight both these guys, her 60-year-old dad and her 60-year-old uncle, who are you gonna fight? You're gonna fight the 25-year-old or the 6-year-olds?
Well, I'm not gay, so I wouldn't have a partner. But if it was my girlfriend or my wife, I would take on all of them. I don't care.
Yeah, I second that. I ain't scared. I'm like, what you say? What'd you say too? Oh, let's go. Both of y'all.
So you'd fight the 25-year-old and the 60-year-olds?
Yeah, if I had to.
Yeah. If they
I'd be like, who wants it? Who wants it first?
Yeah. I'll take both of them at the same time. If I get beat up, I say I got jumped, then that's my excuse.
I think the context matters too. Like, what are we fighting about? Is it some dumb shit or is it like some serious shit that needs to be handled?
I don't know. You just have to fight one. Like,
Yeah.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah. But it probably just builds up over time. Then you just fight, as an in-law, you probably take some shit. And at the end, it's like, and it comes down to fighting. It's like, fuck, I'm tired of these motherfuckers. They keep building shit on me and it's just going to snap,
I don't know. I don't want to get
Yo,
my
man.
ass kicked by 100 years of experience. So I ain't going to fight the 60-year-old. Actually, I'd fight the 60-year-olds.
You always say you never fight anybody. When are you going to fight? When are you going to man up and do something for yourself?
What are you
man,
talking about?
Just take an ass whooping, man.
Just take an ass whooping and say, I'll fight.
No, I said I'll fight the 60-year-olds.
Yeah, that's fucked up. That's even worse.
I thought you said you didn't want to fight the 100.
You said you didn't want to fight 100
years.
years.
No, see, if I had to choose, I wouldn't be fighting the 25-year-old because that 25-year-old is probably approaching his peak physical fitness. Because I think you peak at 27, but the 60-year-olds are on the downhill side, so it'd be easier for me in my eyes to fight them.
Hell no, the freaking older people are way tougher than a 25-year-old little beta male.
Yeah.
No way.
I think you're talking about mentality wise, like 27-year-olds stop developing at 27. Maybe that's when, but physically, I think it's like 36.
No way. We can look this up. I'll look it up in a little bit, but still,
some 36.
I kind of feel like if I were to get my ass kicked by one of these guys or by like either one, the 25-year-old wouldn't know when to stop. So he'd beat my ass too bad. But the 60-year-olds be like, he's had enough. So that way I'm not getting my ass kicked too bad.
Say it again.
Depends if they're drinking or not, too.
Hey, they should keep going.
Yeah. They don't know when to stop.
I don't know. When I'm 60 years old, I hope I can still bob and weave, man. I get my knees might snap or,
Initially, I was asking about 55-year-olds, but then I was like, who the hell is 55? Did you know Vin Diesel's 55?
Damn.
Yeah. How old's The Rock? Isn't The Rock like almost 50, 52?
He's like 50.
50, 52, yeah.
Jason Statham is 55 too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't fucking fight Jason Statham. But Andrew Cuomo, 64, I think take Cuomo.
Damn, I don't think you take
Why
Cuomo.
are you bringing up Como, man?
Yeah, why you
Come
bring
on,
up
man.
Cuomo?
Shit, you
Because
I
trying
thought, I
to
thought that was your brother, man.
he's
Why
supposed to be
you-
brought to justice. Remember, you guys want me to do more? So I gotta go fight Cuomo.
Now you're
Damn,
gonna-
would you fight the younger Cuomo or the
You're gonna
older
lose your
Cuomo?
shit on Cuomo.
I'm gonna fucking fight old Cuomo. I'll lose my shit on old Cuomo, not young Cuomo.
Young Cuomo
look
looked like he
a
could,
beast,
yeah, he could swing. Yeah. What do you think it would fight between? Who would win between him and Dom Lemon?
How about him and Trump?
Oh, that'd be
Oh,
good.
fucking Trump get his ass. Como, older Como against
I
Trump.
don't know.
That's a good
Because Cuomo's only 5'11. I'm talking shit, but he's taller than me. But still, 5'11 versus Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump's like 6'4.
Yeah, like 6'3" or something.
Yeah, but he if you ever look at how he stands like a fucking duck or some shit. I don't know. Like he stands weird, so you could pop him and he'll fall over because he don't got
Oh,
no
yeah.
good balance.
Donald Trump is 6'3 though.
But you saw how he had to get help walking down those stairs, old ass bastard.
Stupid.
Okay. You know what? Andrew Cuomo and Joe Biden should fight. Settle this.
Ooh. Joe Biden? I think Joe Biden will win.
Joe Biden will freaking get his ass kicked by anybody, man.
Isn't
Joe
Joe
Biden's
Biden
not all there.
Is
so.
he military? No,
He's
he's
just
not
a-
military, is he?
He's just a twig. He'll
Yeah.
he'll fall over in the wind. He'll fall up the stairs.
Shit.
Okay, so that was my question before we get started. Also, Adrian, make sure that you have the video turned up to the highest resolution.
Yeah, because our guest is on the Navajo Nation. We don't know how that's
His
service is
connection is
bad.
going to be all off, but welcome, guys. Welcome to the Sacred Sweat. We're back.
Back and ever or no?
The sacred
can't say
council
that.
meeting. This is the
Hey, the
secret sacred council meeting.
The back session or
This
executive
is
session.
this is where the real decisions are made.
Welcome to Navajo's most what, are we toxic or most controversial podcast? I see a lot of podcasts popping up, a lot of Navajo podcasts. Good
Yeah.
luck to you all.
We're Dene, not Navajo. Hey.
Y'all gonna be talking about the same stuff. Oh, we need to stop capitalism. And
For
it's so bad.
real. That shit is
We need to talk
boring.
about capitalism.
We need more capitalism on the res.
We need to talk about saving our culture and why white man's bad. That's
They
all
are
we're gonna hear
bad.
from them.
Shenatani's white,
Shout
so
out
don't
to
talk about him
Wushti.
like that.
Shut up. No, we're not shouting him out anymore. He's
Yeah,
salty, he's mad,
Just all hurt.
just
Don't
all
be too
upset.
hurt.
But how
I'm
you guys
hurt too.
doing? Physically, mentally, how you guys doing?
I'm okay, man. To be honest, I have a good week this week. Actually
Order. We have
Point of order. Point of order.
We have Honorable Slater has just joined the pod.
I'll put I'll rest my time. Give my time over to Mr. Slater. Honorable Slater.
Rest your time to Honorable Slater.
Reserve your
Yeah.
time.
Stand up, everybody.
Everybody stand up.
Actually,
Everybody
he
stand
ju-
up, Honorable Slater.
for those of you guys listening, he
Shinatani.
just signed in on the sign-in sheet and he took off. So
Damn, got his $500 check and
he's
bounced.
I'm out.
Jeez. You guys hear me?
Shinatani.
Yeah, all the way from where you at? What's your background?
That's a beautiful
This is
background.
Round Rock. This is right in front of my house.
Oh, dang.
Nice.
Yeah, nice view.
Trying to set all my cables up right now.
So that's where you do your live in that Hogan in the back, your live shows. I've seen some.
No, I do
Oh.
it from the house that's in front of that. We have a
Your live,
couple
your live debates.
Hogans. Yeah. I'm talking to myself on the internet. Yeah.
Oh, but welcome,
How are you
man.
guys doing?
We're doing
Oh,
good, man.
doing
We're
well.
Glad, we're glad to have you, man.
For those of you that are listening, Honorable Carl Slater just joined the Sacred Sweat. So welcome.
Very sacred. tonight.
Welcome, Honorable Slater. Can you please address the constituents?
And also tie that thing up.
Introduce yourself. Yeah, and make sure you're tied
Yeah,
up.
make sure to tie it up. Not too tight.
Oh, God. I'm not going to get into that right now.
So welcome.
Guys, let me collect myself real quick after that intro. Yeah, everyone. Yeah, Shastu Dotsani. Adonai Nishunagi A Kiani Sontane Bashichin, Sidajini Dashiche, Sontane Dashina, She Carl Russell Slater Dashijine, Tinik Anna Dent Nasha, Wakatego Dent Michelin. So my name is Carl Russell Slater. I'm Kiani, born for the Jewish people, and I live in Round Rock, Arizona. That's where my mom's side of the family is from, and it's really a pleasure to be with you guys this evening. I think just as a matter of practicality, I am always trying to reach out to audiences that will have me, because as a leader, you've got to meet people where they are. And, you know, this is kind of a non-traditional setting for that sort of outreach. But to me, you know, I think some of the things you guys discuss and talk about is really important for our young people, for our menfolk. And even though maybe it's a little risque sometimes, I'm not necessarily condoning that, but I just want people to know that as a leader, I am accessible, and hopefully, you know, particularly at a time right now where folks feel like they're boxed out of the political process or they don't know what's going on, I'm someone that they can talk to on really anything. So, yeah.
Yeah, man, we appreciate you coming on. We much respect for sure coming on this podcast. And we do appreciate you, you know, doing the non-traditional ways of trying to communicate with people, especially on social media. You're out there and just, you know, trying to bring the Navajo Nation into the 21st century. So, yeah, for being here.
Yeah,
Anybody
thank
else
you.
first?
Yeah, I mean, welcome. Good to meet you. And I never met you in person, but I've communicated to you in different ways through social media. But
But he's
it-
DM'd you hate messages.
DM'd you both ways. And I'm just
People
kidding.
before the projects.
But like what
Well,
age
Hirsch,
we met?
didn't you say,
What's that?
that you lived in Rockville before for a little bit
Yeah.
of time, and you
Yeah,
thought that maybe we met at some
No,
Navajo meetup in the DC
we
area? And I
definitely
have
met.
a vague recollection of this, so I want to believe it.
Yeah. No. To be honest, I actually touched base with my auntie, who I lived up in Rockville with my auntie and my uncle, and I asked about you, and I was like, "Who's his parents?" And they're like, "Okay, that is the house. That's the house that my little we used to go to your house. It's like a 2-story house, and it was like a bluish greenish house. So my auntie and my uncle used to always go to your parents' house, and you used to play with my little sister, and I remember having to like tell you, hey, stop putting like." Stop making her cry. I get it after you because you were like I think 4 years younger than me. Yeah, so you are that
Wow,
boy.
I don't remember any of that.
Yeah,
I
I
also
think
don't
you were
remember living
probably
in a
like
blue house, but who knows?
I think you were like 4, 5, 6 years old in that age. Yeah, so that's how I kind of connected it when I asked my because I work with other people too, and they're like they know you, they know your family, and I was like connected it, and I asked my auntie and said, yeah, that's them. So definitely cool to see that you're doing what you're doing now. Like I don't know, like, that was probably what 25 years ago, maybe 20, 30 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's long.
I turned 30 in March, so
Oh, okay.
Damn.
So I'm
somewhere around
7.
there.
Yeah, I'm like 6 years older than you. So yeah. So you were in that age. Because I was in 3rd and 4th grade during that time. You were like a little rudder rat running around.
Little road guy, that's right.
All right, guys, before we get started, I was asking these guys a question. So, Carl, would you rather fight your girlfriend slash fiance's 26-year-old brother or her 60-year-old dad and her 6-year-old uncle together? Like you'd have to fight those two, or you'd have to fight the 25-year-old.
Wait, so the brother or the father and uncle together?
Yes. So 2 6-year-olds or 1 25-year-old.
Oh man. I'm not going to fight anyone. I don't believe in violence, man. I'm no violence, man. That's what I'm going to say. I don't.
Yeah, you and Dan like
I
to
would
kick it.
say I think just one lesson that I've learned literally today again, or had it reaffirmed, is that you can always bury the hatchet and you can always move forward in a good way, no matter how far things seem to be gone. But it really takes investment from both people to do that. So
Things just
I-
jaw.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a very diplomatic way to
Yeah.
answer that.
So Carl, you got engaged, huh?
I
Yeah,
did.
Is that
congratulations,
true?
man.
Congratulations.
Oh yeah,
man.
congrats, man. Yeah.
I really appreciate that, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What
I'm
was
very
the
excited.
I'm fighting the 60-year-olds, by the way. If I'm I
6-year-old?
feel like
Oh,
I got a
yeah.
better chance of beating two 60-year-old men than I do one 25-year-old dude.
I think if you're a Navajo guy, you know that, like, someone's gonna call you shut on that, and they're gonna, like, you're gonna be the in-law. You gotta know your place. You don't fight anyone. You're just there to help. And whatever
Yeah.
they ask you to do, you should do it, as long as it's not hurting anyone or causing any discord within, your environment. So I'll say that.
All right, guys. One
Steve.
more question before we get into this. This is like a gentleman's question. So you have $50. Your girl has $200. The dinner bill is $46.78. Who pays? You want to go first, Hirsch? Are you
I'll
paying?
pay. As being a gentleman question, as a gentleman, I'll pay.
Did you say that we only have $50 or the?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
we might have to.
you as the man only
I
have
would just
$50.
be like, I would just be like, I got $50. I'll get it, but you can get the tip. Actually, I'd split that. Actually, never mind.
Wait, so you each have 50?
No, she has 200. You have 50,
Oh,
but the bill's $46.
but I mean,
It's the first date?
You're eating out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
I think
Damn,
I'd pay for the bill, but then I'd ask her for the tip, like to leave the tip, because I don't have enough money to cover the tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we should be simping and be paying for people's meals
Yeah.
all the time. So that's why you split it. What do you think about simping, Carl? Do you think it's good to simp or not?
Can you define that? What does that
fine
mean?
sipping.
It's like a guy who, pays for the meals all the time, takes the woman out to a show, pays for everything, tries to really impress them, tries to really just go along with whatever they believe and not really stand up for, or not really stand on their own foundation, and just tries to impress them by going along with whatever they believe or whatever they say or whatever they want to do.
So I would say I'm more traditional in that I'm a hetero cis dude. I believe, or like, what's comfortable with me is monogamy, monogamous relationships. And in that, partnership is super important to me. So you need to have conversations with your partner. And I'm just speaking from my personal experience. There's people who have other types of relationships that work for them. But, whether it's a hetero or, a non-hetero relationship, like if you have open and clear communication on like what your mutual goals are, like what your financial picture is, like what your expectations are, then it's not so much like, oh, you're simping or you're doing this. You're like helping the other person achieve their goals and like be their best self. And then you have your mutual goals, and then you have like your individual goals. So whatever encourages that sort of growth is really, I think, the right way to think about things. But like me personally, I mean, I enjoyed being a provider or helping that out. When you have like a single income family, sometimes that, depending on what the economics are there or the income, that can be not great in certain situations. And you got to think about how to balance what you're trying to do. But yeah, I don't know. I'd say in general, yeah, I pay for my girl. I want her to enjoy
So
whatever we're doing.
So you're
together.
submissive.
He's a
Basically, that's
catch.
what sip is. Like, yeah, you're very
Yeah,
submissive.
man.
I don't think, remember, I think we drew the line as you can't be a simp. It's not simping if that's your girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's your fiance
Yeah.
or whatever, then yeah, you should pay.
I think,
you should be a
I see. So
provider.
like,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, like if you're a guy, I would say this, there's a lot of guys who just view, and particularly young guys, right? Like they don't maybe have a lot of like healthy relationships modeled to them. They don't know
Yeah.
how to like open that line of communication with people. And so they just say like, oh, I got to pay for everything or do this. And then they feel really dejected and like they are not fulfilling themselves as like a man or a provider or whatever in the relationship. And so they put themselves in like bad financial situations because of that. So I think, you got it. You got to communicate. You got to communicate.
Yeah, and it's not reciprocated, and then they get, frustrated or whatever, and they get depressed because the woman doesn't like them, and they don't want, and she doesn't want them, but yet he did all this stuff for her, and it just caused all this.
You hit on a good
strife.
point. You said no, we don't have no role models to really resemble that kind of behavior, because it's like buy something, you'll get something out of it. It's kind of a scenario for us here on the net, like on the reservations. You see that a lot with natives. Maybe we're just playing that role.
Yeah, Hirsch, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all know from either personal family experience or maybe have studied it more like academically, but we had a traditional, I'm just maybe use that broadly. Everything was prescribed, like your place, your position, like what you're supposed to do in the family, your relationships, right? Like we're didn't have, like, it's all about relationships and what your obligations are through, and so, and then within the family unit. And we had this like tremendous trauma or like breakthrough inflicted upon us, like during these contact periods and kind of since then. And then you have the boarding schools and you have all these things that have contributed to, I think we need to be frank, right? Like a breakdown in family life. And you combine that with a lack of resources. So you don't have the things like in this system right now to help people have a certain standard of living. You add all those stressors in, and then you add in the drugs and alcohol, and then like I'd say, sexual abuse within families, like people not understand, like being taught things and having it be acceptable, in their mind, and then people just covering it up, within that. So finding men that you can either learn from or just kind of have a conversation with. I think a lot about like young men and how they feel left out of the political process, family life, the economic like vitality of their communities. And I see a lot of like young women and just our matriarchy in general, they've always been there and been understood as like the backbone. But like, you're not, you need to be a warrior, you need to be a provider, you need to do this. Like, how do you translate that into a modern context and do it in a healthy way? So I applaud you guys for talking about some of these things, and bringing them up. I think that's good to have a space. And then like when you look at, say, I don't want to say like influencers, but social media and all of this, a lot of it I think is really female oriented, and that's so positive and good. But I just see people unwilling to talk about things because they don't feel like they have the vocabulary, and then they're like, okay, I don't want to get called this or that. But you need to be respectful. You need to care about your people. It's the intentionality you bring, and then you have to look at what the like intent versus impact. If you're hurting people, don't do that with your platform. I think that's, I think some of the things, like for example, on this, calling like the LGBTQ community like alphabet soup or like that stuff, I think that's really hurtful. If you're gay and you just you hear that, because it feels like you're minimizing like who you are as a person. But admitting that we don't have the vocabulary or the knowledge on a particular subject is an important first step. And then you say, okay, well, I'm willing to learn about this, or I'm willing to see things differently, or walk a mile in someone's footsteps is how you, I think, manifest. I think that's important.
Well, I disagree with you when you say like we need like these resources and we need this and that, these outer things in order for us to be fulfilled inwardly. Like to me, the Navajo, I'm Christian, but even the Navajo culture is about, like you said, and we do these ceremonies and we do these things so that we have this peace and we have this inner fulfillment, and it doesn't come from the outside, it comes from the inside. So no matter what I say or what somebody else says, it shouldn't affect you, because if you know who you are and you're confident in who you are, then that shouldn't bother you. But if you're not confident and you have whatever, some kind of conflict going on inside of you, you don't know who you are or what you're about, and then somebody says something, then you're going to get offended by it. Like that doesn't make sense to me. Also, I think one thing that we don't really talk about when it comes to like the Navajo leadership is like the morality part of things. Like we just want to say, oh, don't hurt somebody, don't say this because they're going to get hurt. Well, no, we have to talk about morality. We have to talk about what it means to be a moral people. And I don't think that conversation's being happened at the leadership
That's a really
level on
difficult
Navajo.
conversation to have. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to touch on that if you want me to, real quick.
Yeah, I mean, what do you?
I
what do
won't
you
be
think?
quick because I'm a politician. So
Yeah, it's like, wait,
We
point
gotta
of
speak in
order.
never
Navajo.
should have had me on this. No, but well, Adrian, I mean, look, I think like the important thing for me is being able to disagree without being disagreeable, because so much of our rhetoric is, I would say, like kind of violently charged these days. There's just this, you just cast someone aside the second that you have a little disagreement, and it completely negates the person and like their worth. I think that people are endowed, like life is sacred. People are endowed with like a purpose in life that from the internet, from God. And that for you, from God, I think from Jesus, right? You said you're a Christian. So, having that really strong footing, yeah, okay, I can let things slide off me. For example, I get attacked every single day on social media, on wherever, and it's mainly from people who I have no relationship with, right? So I think going back to those relationships, like, well, what is our obligation? It's really easy to take a snipe at someone via social media or to make a sarcastic or a sardonic comment. But, I have a family, I have, obligations too, and I am trying to do as much good in the world. You guys are trying to do that here, like within your personal and professional lives. But when it comes to morality, when you have those conflicting moralities, that's where you need to figure out how to disagree without being disagreeable. And our political system, because we have such diversity now, needs to accommodate diverging viewpoints and diverging moralities. Someone can say, I don't believe that the Navajo Nation should recognize gay marriage. And that is, in their world, that is 100% moral. That is the right thing to do. And if you are from any viewpoint that's divergent from there, then you say, okay, well, it doesn't matter what they say because this is morality and this is the fall of civilization if you allow this or whatever. But on the other end, you have the people who say my morality is that everybody should enjoy this right to publicly announce whom they love, have it recognized by the government, enjoy the benefits of that marriage in a political context. And so, for me, then it goes back to, okay, well, what are the political rights of a person, of a family, of a society, and like, how do you define those? So on that particular issue, I think it's very important to say politically, gay marriage needs to be legalized, and it needs to be legalized so that people enjoy insurance benefits when they're in the hospital, they're able to visit loved ones, when they are filing their taxes or having a relationship with the government. If the government is going to be involved, then why are we discriminating? So to me, that's just so critical. But again, I can disagree, with someone who says no gay marriage. And look, I come from, I'm using this example, I'm just expounding it for a minute. Navajo way, no, I think there, gay marriage, I'm talking about marriage specifically. I'm not talking about like, say, a gay relationship. Every Hatathli I speak to says no, that's bad. I'm not going to use some of the other terms, that they use, either Navajo or English for it. But, the political rights is a different question. We don't have a Navajo, like a Dene religious theocracy, because every delegate except for one is not Hatathli. And under our traditional leadership, right, you had to be Hatathli, and then you had in the troubles and stuff, you had, I think, like, the 12 peace and 12 war chiefs. Each of them had to have this specific way, and then everything was tied back into interpreting, our order through our traditions, our culture, our religion. But we're not imposing that these days. We want to recognize and make space and support and bring up that. I'd say on my Jewish side, the most classic or the most quote unquote traditional right, it says, a man should not lie with another man the way that he lies with a woman. And I'm not going to get into the specifics like there on some of that, because you don't probably have any Jewish listeners. But I recognize that people need to have those political rights. I went off on a big
I
tangent.
think,
I'm
yeah,
sorry,
I think we
guys.
just need to have those conversations though. We can't get offended if someone says, "Oh, I don't agree with gay marriage," and then that should just be just
Yeah.
as fine as if somebody says, "I do agree with it," and you kind of both have to, like you said, disagree without, what did you say, without getting upset or whatever.
Being
Um,
disagreeable.
Yeah.
being
But it's like how
disagreeable.
you impose like that. Like, I'm not trying to force a Hatassli to perform a gay marriage. And I hate that we have to say gay marriage instead of just a marriage, but a marriage between a man and a man, or a woman and a woman, or trans folk.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they have to do that, but I'm saying that if the government, the Navajo Nation government, is going to be involved and regulate things within marriage, then you gotta make it open for everyone to be able to express themselves and live their true lives, live their true selves. Because if you're in a world where you're really suppressing the maximum potential of society and all of its constituent pieces, you're not getting the best out of society. And on Navajo, where like we are so economically depressed, disadvantaged, politically depressed and disadvantaged, where like, we've had this breakdown in social order in some cases. We need the best from everyone. We need them all participating and contributing, and we invite them in.
So, hey, Hirsch, does anyone know if the Navajo Nation issues marriage licenses?
Yeah, again, you
Yes.
kind of broke up.
No,
Yeah.
I asked if the Navajo Nation issues marriage licenses.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's why. Okay. For a moment there, I didn't think that they did. So for me, I was like, why does it matter? Because you could still get married in Arizona.
Yeah, you could just go somewhere else and get married. My
No,
problem
that's
is,
true, but the thing is that
that's
marriage
true,
is
but you're
not
Navajo
recognized on
on your
Navajo.
own.
So I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I
not
agree with
recognized.
yeah. Like I would want to be married in my own Navajo Nation. Like, why not? I'm a citizen of Navajo Nation. This is who I am. Like, why would I want to go over to a state to just get recognized on?
but
But-
our political system or our laws are influenced by our culture and our traditions. So that's what makes us unique, and that's what should stay the same as much as possible. One thing I have a problem with is the drag shows that they have at the Navajo Nation Capitol for Pride Day. I'm not down with that.
I think that's
I'm
a
supporter.
What do you guys think? What do you think, Delmar and Hirsch?
Go ahead, Delman. I'll go after you. You haven't spoke yet. You're kind of quiet. I don't know why.
Oh, I'm
Drink
not
some
quite. I
coffee.
mean,
So,
I,
you
I like
scared?
I like drag shows. I've been to a couple. I mean, I enjoy it. Nothing wrong. It's fun. It's a good time.
To
I mean,
me,
it didn't hurt me.
yeah.
So
I think I mean I'm okay with it. I have nothing personally wrong with it, but the only suggestion I would give is give a little education behind it to the elders. I think it has to be a little more respectful in how they're going to do it. Like the elders, and they see this and they're like, Hati, like what's going on with it? Like they educate them a little bit, give them information or inform the public about what's going to happen instead of just
Hand out some
like,
brochures.
yeah, just
okay. I guess to piggyback
give a
off
little
that,
more education behind it, because I guess as a researcher, that's always what I always think, like education. That's the most effective thing you could do as a government, is like continue to do education to get the information out there. So
I think
other than that, I have nothing wrong with it.
with the influence of like social media and like the boom, like the internet boom, like things have been moving so fast, like everything is just progressing so quickly. I think one thing that I see on Navajo and what a lot of people don't do is they're not providing like older people, the older generation, a space to grow. Like it's like these people grew up in a time that was different, like pre-internet, and like I would call them progressive natives or like centennial natives are so quick to like judge these people without really
Toxic traditionalism.
yeah, without actually like
Toxic
understanding
traditionalism.
what they
Yeah,
went
that's
through.
Gatekeeping.
Yeah, gatekeeping.
I totally agree with you, Delmar. I think that that's different than what's if we want to talk about like an obligation, and also particularly like respect for our elders and for our parents, and again, they weren't just, it's not just like they have knowledge from, like I'd say like traditional knowledge, it's that like they have lived experiences, and you can never discount that, and our respect for them is based off of those things together. So you know, I don't know if I want to touch on that subject, but I guess what I definitely think that we need to be respectful of them and like the pace at which they move, but it needs to be a balance, right? It definitely needs to be a balance. We can't have like our foot on the necks of people because of who they are, because they're not hurting anyone else. They're just not hurting anyone else, and they're enriching our society if they're participating in it. So that's what I'd say. And then, yeah.
Oh, my bad. But yeah, I was gonna say, dumb. Like I know that space, and that space is at the chapter houses. And how many times have you been to a chapter house? Not you, Carl. I
I'm
know
gonna
you've
say
been
I'm
there.
not the one that's criticizing people though, so don't
Well, I
put that
mean,
on
you
me.
mentioned that's they don't have a space. You're saying,
No, I'm
and
saying that there's a
that
lot of
chapter
young.
house is their space.
I want to build off that, because I think that a lot of those progressive folk, they don't engage at the chapter level.
Yeah,
they don't participate in the
don't.
traditional political process, and they
Mhm.
organize, if they are organizing at all, outside of it. And I think that if you want to talk about like being traditional and like returning to those values and manifesting them in a contemporary sense, you have to start at that level. And it's not enough to just say I'm from like a Diné family and like I talked out there, or I have these conversations with people, or doing your own thing among like you and your friends. I support that. That's great. But you know, on some of my like live broadcast things in my lives, I talk about like who I'm accountable to. And you know, I have this position on gay marriage. I tried to introduce the legislation previously, and I held back on doing it because we didn't have the votes. And I didn't want to just, you know, and this was during COVID too. I didn't want to have like this furor, this uproar, and then not be able to get into the chapter house and then talk to my elders and like talk to my local community members in person. Because again, it's about people. This is about real lives, real love, like the real family level. And when you make it just some abstraction on the internet or on a phone call, that's not the way to do things. And that's who I want to be accountable to and who I believe in. And I'll tell you right now, you know, mom's side of the family, traditional, and that I was raised, they're both equal. One is not superior than the other. Maybe they don't always make sense theologically or whatever, but that's just who I am. I believe in it both ways. My mom's side of the family, Hajonja practitioners, you know, that's what our family does and still does. Now, I had one of my biggest boosters, supporters, a very well-known Hatafi in the Navajo Nation, has done a lot of big things, tell me directly to my face when I was talking to him about this and talking to some other Hatafis before the legislation to get some background and really ground myself in what teachings are and all that. Said, you are desecrating, and for lack, I mean, crapping on essentially that pure Navajo life your grandmother and your great grandpa fought for. But he said, oh, who cares? We're all going to be dead soon anyways, us old ones. And to me, that hurt so much on the second part. The first part, I get it. But the second part where it's like, no, just like I value and I want to know what you're saying. That's why we're talking about this. It's not like, you know, it doesn't matter. Like when you, because you will pass on.
So
At this point,
look at it like at this point, like if we all learn the real fundamentals of being Diné, the real traditional ways, you're not a Christian, you're not any other religious group, you're Diné, you're traditional, those concepts, those foundations, your understanding of those decisions that you're going to make is going to be really easy. But we don't have that anymore. But it's like, how do we balance that out is what we're talking about. But the way I'm looking at it, it's like we're unbalancing it by going too progressive, and we're not being grounded by those traditional foundations. And that's where the Hatafi's point of views are coming from. And I had to ground myself coming back home. You know, I had to ground myself going into ceremonies and sacrifice. I don't want to say sacrificing. To me, it is. It kind of, I guess it is in a sense. It's sacrificing our time, coming home, having no electricity or having no entertainment, or that to me is it's a process in itself that it really affects a person. That if you could do that, then I give you props. And if you can't do it, then you know, it's
Because it requires patience, right? Like, what
It
is our
does.
traditional like teaching and like learning models and things like that? A lot of it,
It's hard.
look, I'm not the
It's hard.
expert to speak on it, but you know, the way you learn ceremonies, you have to be there, you have to observe, and you have to learn the songs by chanting and saying them with, you know, the practitioner. It's not writing down or recording them or things like that. And we have this conflict nowadays where, or we've had it over the last century, where we had, you know, hundreds of ceremonies, and a lot of them say weren't recorded or written down, but people know about them from our knowledge. And then, like, you know, the ethnographers or whatever the hell people were, they alluded to them, and you lose it. So I think we're at this point where, like, Navajo society, like being Diné, like that's not going to end, but we're at a point where, you know, you're conserving and preserving everything that we can at this moment. And we're starting to make some of those difficult choices. I know people who do, you know, they're recording their family songs, or they're recording or whatever, or they're writing them down. And I'm not going to be the one who's going to cast judgment on them, right? It's the decision that they made with like their practitioner. And then if you're just a person who's trying to like learn things, maybe you're not learning ceremonies or whatever, but you're trying to learn from your elders, whatever it is. As a little kid with like ADHD, man, I couldn't sit still in front of my masana and my che. Like, I just was like, oh my God, when is this over? But, you know, I always remind people, the second they're gone, you're going to miss all that. You know, you're never going to pick up enough of it. Everything is not passed on verbatim perfectly from one generation to the next. And we need to recognize some of the things that are quote unquote traditional were inputted into our quote unquote traditional conceptions later on in life. So I think Delmar, I don't know, did you send out like a list of topics for things you want to talk about? One of them was like the Born Navajo.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna bring that up right now.
Ooh,
because
that's a
Our-
great topic.
bring right in.
That's a great segue right there.
Herschel, put
you
your
talk
mic.
to our
mute.
real people who know our traditional attire and quote unquote fashion, you know, whatever, from prior to contact, right? Like, did we wear shoes most of the time or moccasins most of the time? No. What sort of clothes did we wear? We did not wear a ton of clothing covering our like upper bodies. There was a different conception of what was natural and presentable and what needed to be concealed or covered up. And I think that people have taken on like this very conservative notion. And I mean, I abide by it too. I wear pants all the time. You're not going to catch me in shorts. I like to wear long sleeve shirts. And I think a lot of the people that I've been involved in relationships with dress conservatively too. But, you know, for people to just say that like this person, because they were dressed a certain way, has no value, has no worth, that they're disrespecting the nation, I think that that's super offensive. And then that's a person who has done so much to revitalize traditional Navajo culture in the position that she held previously and in her current job working for the Navajo Cultural Arts Program at Tenet College. And it's like, what are you doing? Are you running classes in your community?
Yeah, what
are
are you
you
doing?
helping like your young folks? Are you perpetuating our culture and our traditional knowledge? No, it's like the culture of like Doda, you know, like, and that this is Bahassid and like all that. It's just, we need to reaffirm, like I said, the Hajonja side of life, like this positive goodness, and build people up, not just focus on taboo or focus on things that have been adopted. And I think that the conservative aspect about covering up and stuff is because our women were targeted and targeted today. And it's because, you know, it's because of a lot of things, but people adopt, I think, this conservative, I'm using the notion because they think it's going to protect them. But when you unpack that, or protect their loved ones, when you unpack that logic, it gets back to the woman asking for it. And if someone says that in front of me, you know, I'm going to slap them. And that is the most disgusting line of thought that I think you can
lose his shit.
possibly.
Exactly. That's what losing
I
your
should-
shit
I-
is.
Yeah,
Well, you ain't gonna slap nobody.
take that
man.
back.
Of course, because I'm a grown ass man. Who the fuck am I gonna slap?
Oh.
Like, yeah, I'm done doing that.
That's the most insulting thing you can do. You don't punch someone, you slap them. You want to undress somebody, you slap them.
Well, the way I see it, I think it was wrong for somebody to just put somebody on blast like that on social media or whatever and say, oh, you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that, you're disrespecting everybody. I don't like that when people do that to me, like because I support Donald Trump or whatever. They're like, oh, you're disrespecting your ancestors by supporting Donald Trump. And I'm like, whatever, you freaking crazy person. Like if she wanted to say something, like that could have been done in private. But to me, like, I don't think any woman should be posting pictures of themselves in their bikinis or putting up, thirst traps on social media or just being a slut out there. And I think when people are being, and we just talk about slut shaming, and I think we're supposed to shame sluts because it's not right to be a slut. And so
No.
I just think in any context, it's not right.
What does that mean? What does that
culture
mean?
What does it mean to be a slut? Somebody like on social media, there's people out there trying to get attention, and women out there trying to get attention using their bodies and using whatever they have to get attention, to get likes, and they get fulfillment from that. And that's wrong. And I don't think anybody should be doing that.
So why is it wrong?
It's wrong because it's it's just like, that's not why we were put here on earth. That's not why we were put here, to be trying to get attention from other people and getting fulfillment in that way. Like we get our fulfillment from a higher power,
So why did that higher power make that person look that way?
Why did they make them look that way? What? I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think, on the conservative side, like there's so much in Navajo culture that is like very conservative. And I think when you talk to a lot of folks, they find a lot of comfort in that kind of philosophy. But
I like
I
thirst
just-
traps, guys. I'm just
I
gonna
know
put
you
this
do.
out there. I'm pro thirst trap.
yeah,
can hear you,
I don't
Harsh.
like that word, slut. I just think that's
Yeah,
that's
I don't
like trying to
either.
control someone else and like their choices and like their body and like what they do.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a legitimate point about like what people find fulfillment from and like what are, their, how would you say this? Like making sure that they're doing that in a healthy way.
I think in a way though, like this whole like social
At the
media
end of the day,
generation,
they
we
things for like,
like this
oh,
whole
I'm sorry.
so
I think my internet crapped out.
no problem. This whole like social media generation, we're all doing that though. Like there's a whole generation of like kids or youth that are posting themselves for likes. Like, I mean, TikTok has people doing crazy stuff for likes. So I mean, it's not just women that
Right.
you phrase it as
Right.
if it was just women, but it's not just women that are doing
Yeah.
this.
Thirsty ass guys too. Hirsch,
Yeah, and it's
can we
not
hear
just
you,
like
man?
a sexual nature. It's just anything.
Yeah, it's not just sexual as well either. Hirsch, we can't hear you, man. Come in. Hirsch made a good
Oh
point.
shit!
that-
I
there we
guess I
go.
was muted the whole damn time. I was
Oh,
over
there
here
we go.
talking away.
Actually, it was good.
Yeah. But Hirsch,
Yeah. You guys had horrible concepts.
It was
So for
a
me,
better
and I
conversation.
shared this with the agent and Dell, and I said I don't really have a point of view on this because I don't. It's more of a female. And if you look at social media, a lot of it was the dialogue between women and women. So I look at it as a female issue, but we could put our content in there, but I don't think we're valid. But if we're going to share, my point of view is like, if there's a backstory of what she was saying, is she was on vacation, she was enjoying herself, and to me, that's what she was doing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you have that sexual thought in your thought, Adrian, you're thinking of it from a sexual point of view.
I
You're-
didn't even
you're
see
being
the
a
picture, so I
pervert.
don't even know.
Well,
I don't even
you're
know who it
talking
is, but I'm just
perverts.
saying in
Yeah,
general.
you're
Yeah,
in
people-
it's in the
general.
eyes of the
people-
beholder, Hirsch. That's what you're
Yes,
saying, right? Like you're
exactly.
the one
So-
who's having this response.
Exactly. Your thoughts are really negative. To me, when I seen the picture, I was like, wow, that's nice. She's having a good time. She's proud of her body. And there's nothing wrong with that for a female. Like just as me, I'm trying to lose as much as the weight I can do it. I'll flex in front of a fucking camera. Give me a camera, I'll flex. And if you're gonna hate on me, but body
He's
shame
gonna
me if
be
you
here
want.
with
I don't
like this,
care.
"Oh, check out these fries.
That's how I look at it. It's a healthy narrative. If you understand it from a healthy point of view, then stop looking at it from a sexual point of view. Then I think that's the problem with men and people in general. They look.
But I
at
didn't
it
even
with
say it's from a
sexual-
sexual point of view. I just said they're they're trying to get
said slut
attention. I said they're
Yeah,
trying to
you
get
did
attention.
say
Yeah.
slut. You used the word slut when
Well,
describing.
because that's how people would say, "Oh, this girl's a slut." She like
I
that's
don't
the
think
that's the
regular
thought
people
that
say
you
that though. Like
that
I didn't
you
think
that
that.
comes in your head. Like you don't want people to think that of you or your family or anybody. Like
That's such a Trump response. People are saying.
Like I
I
saw
know,
the
right?
I saw the picture, but I didn't
didn't see the
I didn't go like, oh damn, she's a
You didn't
slut. I
thirst
was like,
trap.
well,
You didn't
okay,
thirst
well.
trap it.
Yeah, I
But
didn't
I
see
agree
it. So
with.
I don't know.
would-
I don't know if it even applies to her or this situation because I didn't see it. But I do see that on social media, and I don't condone it. But I don't say anything.
then, like-
I'm not gonna put people on blast and say, "Oh, you're disrespecting your ancestors." I was like, do whatever the
Yeah,
fuck you
I
want.
think that's too much. And then like what Carl said, like if you know Crystal, like shout out to Crystal. She's a good person. She's doing a lot of things for her community, and she's legit. You know, if you know her, then why would you criticize someone at that that level that she's representing our people as Miss Navajo, but then she's also doing a lot of good shit in her own personal life and also her work. So I think that was just going after her
Because she's a role
hating.
model. Remember that
Yeah,
conversation we
exactly.
had?
She's a target.
You guys
Oh,
were
yeah.
both saying that she's a role model.
Well,
And
I'm saying that everybody's a role model, and Delmar's saying that he's not a role model. So,
Yeah,
I
Delmar's
mean,
not a
even
role
if you don't
model.
want to be a role model, people are still looking up to you. So you have to carry yourself in a
Delmar's-
certain way.
Delmar's only
Yeah,
5
maybe you didn't want to
seconds.
be born, but you're a role model. Like in our culture,
Delmar, you're a role
you have
model.
obligation. You
Exactly. Everyone has an obligation to
Yeah.
the
Like an
younger,
uncle. Aren't you an
and you
uncle?
represent your family and you represent your culture and you represent all this
do
stuff.
do
So
as I say, not as I do.
I think that's what my mom says.
who's
I
the
guess-
NBA player? Was it
Charles Barkley.
I say Charles. I was about to say Carlos Barkley.
Yeah, Charles Barkley. What did he say? He said, "I've dribbled a ball. It doesn't mean I can raise your kids." That's how I feel. He's not a role
Basically, he
model.
said just shut up and dribble the ball. That concept is what he pretty much played into by saying that.
yeah,
shit.
that's a good role model. Just do your job. And that's how we should all just do our job and shut the fuck up.
Well, I think one thing that we forget about role models is like you can take different aspects of the person. You don't have to like live your life the exact same way. It's kind of like your obligation to be like, okay, like Hirsch likes LeBron James. Maybe he likes the way the
I
LeBron
love
James
him.
is a
I
family
love
man.
him.
So you take that aspect of it. And maybe you like Dwayne Wade's work ethic, and you're like, I like his work ethic. So I mean, it's up to you to build your own role model. You don't be like, oh, I like Robert Downey Jr., but he had an alcohol problem.
I know,
now
but-
I want an alcohol
But
problem.
if you look up to Dwayne Wade and say that you chose him. He didn't say, hey, I'm gonna be your role model. Like if someone looks up to you, Delmar, you can't just like that's not your choice. That's that person's choice.
But
to
it
look
is
up to
their
you or not.
obligation to like pick the thing that they like about me and not like, I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm going to make mistakes. And that's just it. I'm not here to be like, oh, I am the best person that I can be. No, I'm just
You're not the
living my
best
life.
person you can be.
No, not at this moment.
Oh,
Let's move on. Okay, so let's decide. Was it slut shaming then? Yes or no?
It was slut shaming to me. if I'm
Absolutely.
but if she's
I
not a
think so,
slut,
too.
then how can it be slut shaming?
because
hate-
she was
hate
labeled
slamming.
a slut.
Yeah, I mean
It
the
was just hating.
definition it goes beyond whether like.
Yeah.
I'm
and
saying
I
if
just-
you are a slut, then you should be shamed. You should be ashamed of it. Is that's all I'm saying. If
Maybe
she's not a
you were a
slut, then she
slut.
has nothing to be ashamed of.
But then again, it goes back. You're going in circles because Carl asked you what a slut was, and then you just got here, and it's like the way people think about a slut is how is a slut. That's what a slut is, and we're just going around in circles. So
Yeah. But the creator said I'm a slut.
We
so
all
I'm
know what a slut is, and you just don't want to put out that.
I
vibe.
honestly don't know what a slut is because like some people can just be promiscuous. Doesn't mean that they're sluts.
That does mean they're a slut.
They're a slut. Let them be a slut. Shit, don't hate them. Let them
I mean,
be.
yeah, if you want to be a slut, then be a slut.
Okay.
Just
So
don't shame them. That's what we're saying.
so
Like,
if a
there's no
woman
context.
has 10 bodies and a guy has 10 bodies, only one of them is going to be a slut.
Let's talk about something else.
The
now.
woman's going to be the slut.
Okay, can we
Even-
move on?
Let's move on this
almost
topic.
regret bringing this up.
Well, what about the next one, Delbert? Go ahead. I'll let you lead it.
No, let's interview Carl. Like, we'll get
let's
to
get-
our other stuff.
Carl,
Okay,
what do you think is the most pressing topic going on the Navajo Nation right now?
Actually, before we start, I have a question. Which parent is Navajo of yours?
My mom.
Your mom.
I mean,
okay.
if you were listening to my
That's
I
what I
know, right?
needed
If you're
to-
paying
Yeah, he's
attention.
introduction. Like,
Carl,
God. This is what happens when you don't know your culture. Just kidding.
I know.
Hey.
So Carl, I know you didn't want to talk about
That's
this
fucked
topic,
up.
but we just want to know, since you're part Jewish, like, are you circumcised or uncircumcised?
You don't have to
I'm
answer that.
I'm Jewish, and I'm
You're
just
Jewish?
not going to
Okay.
touch that. I'm not
Okay.
going to.
Look,
Okay,
You
how
heard
about
it,
this?
guys. He's
How about
Jewish.
this? Bear
I
son,
I can't believe that I agreed to do this podcast. Jesus
Bear
Christ.
son,
You're
or
good. Don't
Ashki
worry.
Happy?
You're good.
Bear Center. Oh, Oshki Happy. Oh my God. I mean, I
Oshki
don't remember a
Happy.
lot from my childhood. I don't know when I stopped remembering things, but one of my earliest memories is being at the Navajo Nation Fair, having a little red balloon, and then like I don't know if I handed off like an ice cream cone to the other one or what it was, and that balloon just went up. And then also in the background is like Oshki Happy, like and like a meme. It's just like him like staring down little Carl, Oshki Carl. And God, yeah. So I'm pro. I don't know. I mean, Bearson seems to be doing some good work, but
Yeah.
What is
Ashki
Bear Son
Happy needs to
about?
walk from Ganado to Window Rock. I saw a meme that said, or a post that said he needs to do that now.
he's like the little Sebastian of the Navajo Nation. It's like everybody is down with Oshki Happy. I made that meme once. It's one of the only memes I've ever made. It was like the Drake one, and it's like no to
You
little
made memes?
Sebastian.
All right.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah,
No,
that's how
this
he
is-
won his election.
He's
Yeah.
all putting out his own memes.
Yeah, he's like, vote for Carter, vote for Slater. Carlito. You should make one with Carlito. Like, is that your real name, right? Carlito? Or is it
No,
Carl?
no. My name's Carl, but I'd say nobody in my family calls me Carl. It's either Carlito, Carlos, or Carlo. I have one auntie who calls me that. My Navajos. She's
Straight gangster, Carlito.
All right, so for people that don't know, can you explain how you got into council? Like how did you end up in your position?
okay. So I'll just give a little bit of bio about me. I think it's relevant.
Yeah, go for it.
Particularly for people who like want to get involved in government or want to get involved in their people. So I graduated from college in 2014. And then I worked for the Adaptive Sports Center in Crested Butte, Colorado. I was helping people with disabilities experience outdoor adventure activities. And I was doing kind of communications and marketing work for them. Did that for a bit. While I was in school, I worked for Senator Bingaman from New Mexico, and I was an intern and then a staff assistant in his DC office. And when I did some work with the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, which he was the chairman of at the time. And then I took some time off during college also and worked for some campaigns actually out in Virginia, and then when I was in school in Colorado. So I went to Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and so worked up in Colorado. Then I was looking for work either on Navajo or back in DC. I really wanted to work either in an executive branch program or in legislative governance. So I wanted to get back on the Hill. I got a job as the senior public information officer for the Division of Transportation, the Navajo Division of Transportation. And that position kind of morphed into more of an intergovernmental affairs and strategic planning and special projects and stuff like that, in addition to the communications responsibilities. So I kind of leveraged my government experience there. I then was placed as the airports manager, I think because they recognized I had some competence, even though that wasn't my background. They needed a delegated person to do that. I proved myself and I got the position permanently. I really enjoyed working in the aviation world. It's an awesome place. And we have airports in Navajo, and I was trying to use them as a community and economic development driver and actualizing our airport master plan. I had a mentor at the time. His name is Orlando Teller. He's now the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs at the U.S. Department of Transportation. And he's mentored me a lot in my life. And then there was the election back in 2018. And so I'll be honest, I applied to work in the office of the president, vice president. I think they were already staffed up, get anywhere there. And I really wanted to just work in a different part of government because I felt like I had this worker bee and managerial experience that I wanted to help apply on a systemic level, whatever I could do while I was young and had energy. And so I applied to work for Seth Damon, and he, right after he became the Speaker of the Navajo Nation in January of 2020, January 20, 19. And I was hired to be the director of communications and government affairs in his office. I did that from like the end of January to I think the end of July. And in the middle of July is when the late and great Nelson Begay, he was a council delegate, I believe, for 5 terms and was in his 6th, he contracted cancer, and he thought that it was in the best interest of us in District 11 that he resigned so someone else could take the seat and be there more fully present. And so he resigned and he retired. And I'm very sad that he passed away this past year. But he had an incredible impact on my life, and he supported me during the campaign and after. And I think that, you know, if you prove yourself with respect and with knowledge, and you show that you have that passion for your people, like he was a people person. Like I learned that from him. And not just to discount someone because like you don't agree with them, right? Like you don't get anywhere if everyone's talking past each other. Your people will respond to that, and you know things can get really contentious, but you got that. So I won a special election at the end of September of 2019. I took office in October of 2019, and I've been in council since then. I think like a month or 2 after that, there was some shuffling in my committee, and I took his place on the Health, Education, Human Services Committee, and my colleagues on the committee selected me to be the vice chairman of that committee. So we have the widest, the biggest portfolio of any of the committees on the Navajo Nation in terms of funding, and then just the number of programs too.
Yeah. Which chapters do you represent?
So I represent Rough Rock, Satija, and then, so I'm gonna start from the west and do a little circle around, and then Rock Point, and then Lukachukai, and then Saheli, Wheatfields, Black Rock. So I think for some reason in the communications it says Saheli, Wheatfields, but there's another very substantial community called Black Rock, which is a part of there. And then of course my home community of Tsinakana, Round Rock. So love them all equally. I wish I could live in each one of them. And I have roots and connections in each one of these communities. My grandmother ran away, my Masana ran away from the Lukachukai boarding school. Our sheep camp is up on the mountain above Lukachukai. You know, I love that place. I've had family work in the school there. Diné College is located in Saheli. You know, my grandparents helped found that school. They were a big part of that. They helped found Rough Rock Demonstration School in Rough Rock, and my mom grew up there for a part of her life, and we've just been connected there for a long time. Also have some like extended, I'd say maybe like it's in the Ginny family over there through distant relations. And then in Rock Point, my only living Masana, my direct Masana's half sister, she's still alive, and she lives between Rock Point and Round Rock over there. So shout out to my fam over there.
So for like our 2 non-Navajo listeners, Dom, Joseph, and another one, basically Carl is similar. I guess if you had to draw parallels, it's like the US government. Carl is like our version of a senator. So Carl represents these communities that he comes from. And so
He
for
represents the
non-natives,
legislative branch of
Yeah.
our government, our sophisticated 3-branch government.
He's 1 out of 24.
Our colonized 3-branch government.
Yeah, or colonized.
Shana Atani. Do you like being called just? Nah, I'm not gonna get that into.
yeah, ask him.
I have a problem calling you guys Natanis, Natani, because you know, first of all, no disrespect to you, you don't speak the language, and that's something that I value in regards to a real Natani, Natani. Like, but I'm kind of understanding that a little more based on just my content of asking these questions. It's like it's a real Natani. There's stories behind that, and it does have different traits, but it's really a person who's been elected by the people. So
I
in
think
a
you
sense,
guys
you are
speak the same
Natani.
amount of
Yeah.
Navajo.
So my question to you, Carl, to be honest, is like you not being able to speak the language. I think you're upfront with that. So do you think that kind of puts a hold on the progress of our government, or is that something that is progressive in our government? So is it negative or bad, or is there a balance between that you see from your point of view?
Well, I mean, what's the underpinning? Like, what does Napani mean, right? It means like someone who speaks for the people. And that is, I think, something where you got to take maybe a traditional essence and bring in a contemporary aspect to it there. The majority of our people do not speak Navajo fluently or even like semi-fluently. And when it gets to the younger generations, I'm not going to say it's better or worse, but there's just fewer people who speak Navajo. And over 50% of the Navajo Nation, I think, is under the age of 30. And then under 18 is also a huge demographic right there. We saw some language revitalization with the policies and the work of the ZA administration. And since then, things have kind of been in decline.
Yeah.
So, I think this is a big conversation talking about fluency and all of that, but I think the language is sacred. And, there's this concept, I don't know if it's Foucault or whatever. They're like, language speaks us or something like that. How much is it our thoughts, but like what makes up our thoughts? It's like how we see the world. Navajo being descriptive, having like consequences to actions and contextualizing things like that. It really is, it's a worldview. But if you grow up understanding as much of the culture and religion as you possibly can, then I think you're able to articulate those ideas, and yes, a slightly different way, but you're still trying to imbue the will of the people through your oratory with those traditional concepts. Now, does it hold me back? Yes, I would never run for president without being a fluent speaker. And I think that we need to have a fluent speaker as president because they need to reach every single Navajo. And so in Navajo Nation law, it says that to be a delegate, you have to be fluent in Navajo, or you have to be fluent in English. To be president, it says you have to be fluent in Navajo and English, or at the very least Navajo, I think. And then that referendum says it's the people who decide, right? Going back to that Ani, traditional conception, the people voted and they said, well, we're going to define who's fluent and who's not fluent. And yeah, we're at this crossroads right now where I think there are elders who feel like they can't communicate with me, but when I go and sit down with them and I bring a translator, like my legislative district assistant or the chapter leadership, we can make that connection, but I'll bring it back to the family at the Hogan level. Like, our parents, our grandparents conveying and speaking to their kids in Navajo as much as they can? And are they helping those elders understand things if they do have that fluency, where they are bilingual, but the elder is not bilingual?
Yeah.
That referendum vote, or
question.
the people deciding who is fluent, that's an interesting topic. I mean, didn't we have an elected leader get stripped of his position based off of technically not being
language?
fluent?
Yeah.
But I mean,
Well,
the
he
way
wasn't elected. It was a part of the election.
Okay, so he was. Oh yeah, he made it to the next round, right?
Yes, in our system, right? Open field.
Okay.
You could have every single Navajo run for president. I think you guys brought this up in a different episode. Like, who is gassing up these people to run? Like, hey, everyone is not built for this, but I want you involved. I want everyone involved. But you after the runoff, then you just have two. And so it was Chris Deschini, and he was removed. I can tell you a lot more about that. It's the ripple.
Delmar still heard about that.
No, I mean,
he's gonna get triggered.
If we're talking about referendum, I mean, the people that voted for him did decide that he was fluent enough to represent them. So it's kind of like we discounted that. So, I mean, games were played, in my opinion, games were played behind the scenes, and people that voted for him weren't allowed. I mean, their vote was basically stripped.
Yeah. I mean, I voted for Chris too, to be honest. And I think he was the most reasonable candidate, like, for me. Like, he outweighed the number from the other candidates. That's how I looked at it. But my vote didn't count, I guess. I don't know. But that's a good answer. Thank you for answering that. I mean, I guess my question was, like, is the language really holding us back from a Western system to advance ourselves just because of the culture and the language? From your experience?
Okay, well, I'd say, so holding back, that's like very much a conception of like progress, right? And advancing and development. And if you think about how our societies were organized, or some of our society and our communities were organized, it was about living in harmony and balance, walking the Tadadim path, living in a genre. Like, you were not set up to be constantly disruptive to your life and your community and whatever, what have you. So something that I try to push back on for a lot of folks, whether they're coming at this from like a left-leaning progressive notion, or from like a more right-leaning, rah economic development, whatever perspective, is like, wait. That's not necessarily innate to us. So let's make something uniquely Diné in how we articulate a future economic system that we can develop, or articulate. Maybe it's not developing. And the past system disrupted. I think a lot of people they say, oh, go back to this, go back to that, but they haven't necessarily obtained community consent for that, right? They're imposing it from a closed-minded circle, and they don't work at the chapter level to talk about what that means. I think some of the most effective organizations on Navajo are grounded in tradition, and they have cultural advisors. They're doing that, and they work at that level, and they recognize when their community wants X, Y, or Z, whether it's a certain center or they want a store in the community, and they'll be supportive of that. Because again, it's about speaking for the people and recognizing the diversity and what that consent looks like, what authorizes the authority to make decisions. So from progress though, it's not the language. No, it's not. That's not what's holding us back. I think that could be, and I won't say like holding us back. People think that we can just like flip a switch and then we'll be like the state of Arizona or the state of Colorado, right? And there's just some really big things that are obstacles or whatever to that, and that's not what our people have necessarily desired. Otherwise, we would have just liquidated the reservation by now, right? We would have just gone to allotments, but that's not what our people want. We still want this.
That's what
collective
Delmar and
ownership
Adrian
of-
wants. That's the reason why I'm asking.
I want allotments. I don't want allotments.
No, you want to.
But it's a
I
crutch.
want my
People say
lot.
like,
I want my lot.
people say, oh, it's like these ignorant like leaders who don't know anything. They don't even know this or that. I mean, look, I'm a young person. I did exactly what everyone says, right? Go get your education, come back. I grew up between Round Rock, Arizona and Bethesda, Maryland. Round Rock being, I'm sure one of the poorest zip codes in America. And then, Bethesda 20817 being one of the richest zip codes in America. I was really blessed to see that juxtaposition on, the people around me in Bethesda, kids whose parents, had like PhDs and MDs, and they're just hyper educated, and that sort of world, and what the expectations are for like the next generation. And then all the pitfalls, I'd say, of that, where people overemphasize material things and they don't have a strong family to fall back on. That's not just pushing them to to achieve some goal. And when they don't achieve it, they just feel like they're worthless and they're depressed, and they don't live their life to the fullest because they don't have Masana there. They don't have their family saying, oh, it's okay. Like, you need to
Carl,
reorient.
I think you make a good point about the family, and I think that's like the most important thing, is having strong families, having strong role models, having strong support system. And I think that's what's missing, because like in Indian country, we have 80% of children born out of wedlock. And in prison, 70% of people in prison grew up without their fathers. And so there's a clear connection between that. And so, I think going back to the morality thing, that's kind of where I'm coming from, is like, how do we have better families? It's like, you guys have to stay together. You got to stop having sex out of wedlock, stop having kids out of wedlock. And like, to me, like, no matter what we do, we can talk about, oh, we got to change this policy, or we got to put money over here, put money over there, but it's not going to get fixed unless we fix the family structure and the morality in the communities.
I don't know about those statistics. That's interesting. I did 80 and 70%.
It's true.
I'll have to look at that.
I mean, it probably
think-
is true just based on the being general, but I mean, trying to draw the parallel between being married and winding up in prison, that's a stretch. I mean, he did say that there was no male figure in the household. That didn't technically say that the families were married and that there was a direct correlation between those two. And I think that's what he was trying to draw the parallels to. So I would take
Yeah,
it
but
with
I
a grain
mean,
of salt.
but again, wedlock is like you're married. It doesn't mean that that person isn't a father figure. It doesn't mean that they're not the partner in that relationship.
But it's
you
less
know?
likely that they're gonna be there. Anyways,
Perhaps.
Is it?
Yeah,
let's
but
move on.
Yeah. I guess the cultural.
It's like nobody wants to talk about this subject, so I guess we'll just brush it under the
Well,
rug
I'll talk about it.
continuously. and
No,
Yeah.
no.
we'll
I
go on
mean,
to the next one.
it's just like, see, you already know my opinion. Like, I don't really believe that people need to be married. I mean,
But I just told you this, the statistics, and
you told me
it's
this,
like,
but that doesn't
it's
relate
like-
to marriage, though. That
Mhm.
relates to
So-
having a male figure in the
Wait,
household.
but if you're talking about like the outcome of the children, right? Like, so if you're trying to say that, okay, this is X equals, or because, X plus Y equals Z over here, and the X is the out of wedlock, and then, or an unmarried couple having a kid, and then the outcome over here is that they are not achieving educationally, they're not going to have positive economic outcomes, they're not going to have positive self-worth and like mental health, and they're not going to be contributing to their family and community. I don't think that the underlying reason in and of itself is that it's because it was quote unquote out of wedlock.
well,
Yeah.
yeah,
There are
I think you guys are
material
focusing too
reasons
much
why
on the
the state-
wedlock thing, but I'm talking about just the family unit.
Yeah,
But
I
you-
believe in
Oh
strong
yeah, I
families.
agree with you. I agree with you on the family unit thing. There's I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah,
But it
but
doesn't.
like
yeah,
there's
I
all
mean,
types of families. Like you could have two same-sex couples. I mean, that's a family. Two unmarried
Yeah.
people cohabitating, that's a family.
According to Navajo tradition, and the reason why we have these Navajo traditions and these teachings, like you say, Hirsch, there's a reason why we have these teachings,
mhm.
because
we also
we don't want to go through the things that we been through in the past where things had went downhill.
But we also had what am I trying to say? We also had, damn it, I can't even think right now. We also had birth control prior to European contact too. There's different herbs that we had that women took.
Abortives.
Yeah. So there was always a control of our population when it came to, kids being born. It's like we understood that concepts, that it's nothing, it's not because you have to be married.
And you had
in order to
women
have
with
sex.
multiple men and men
Yeah.
with multiple women
More than
as their
wives,
partners,
yeah.
right?
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He's so-
Went
Asians
both
getting
ways.
That's probably why we lost the war.
woke.
All right, I have a question, Carl.
Not gonna touch that.
So there's all this. The Navajo Nation
We
just
signed
came
a treaty.
into
We didn't lose it. But
a
go ahead,
huge amount
Dylan.
of money. And I do know that I noticed today that two delegates were talking about more payments to Navajo citizens. Where do you stand on this issue? Because before you get into that, I don't believe that we need any more checks. I feel like it's a wasteful way to spend the money that we've been given, and that there are projects that this money could probably go towards. Like, I mean, I'm sure the president has a whole bunch, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't know everything. Trying to figure out where you stand on checks,
He's a, oh, no.
disbursements to
I
Navajo
think-
citizens.
Man, you came to the right guy. So there was a legislation passed back in July of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. It was CJY 6720, I believe. Co-sponsored that legislation. And we worked really hard with Delegate Crotty, who's the primary sponsor on it. And a lot of that work was getting solar projects in there, getting cistern water projects. Another thing that I believe was important for us was to have a hardship assistance program. And so I worked with our Office of Legislative Counsel and the lawyers to craft that program. And that was my program. I got it passed. I got my colleagues to support it. Nobody voted against it.
No one was going to.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a political suicide if you did.
Well, at the time, you guys thought you were running out of time to spend the money, also. So that
Well,
was
so
like-
there were
Yeah,
manifold
those are
reasons
true.
for like why why I believed it was a smart move to do. One, we had people who needed direct relief, and it's just going through the pandemic. Two, the sort of infrastructure projects that needed to be completed by December 30th, 2020. A lot of them, it was unclear whether they could be completed and put into beneficial use by then, as per the law. And then the last part was the potential for increasing our enrollment. And I mean, if you go back and listen to the legislative record, the debates, these are things that I brought up. I feel like I was very passionate on the first one about assistance to folks that people feel like their government doesn't work for them and that they have no voice there, and that this was one time where the government was freaking they were listening. They knew they needed that assistance. And I thought that was really powerful, because my hope was that it would bring more people in and engage. And boy, has it ever brought people in to engage. I think we know that. Yeah. So I crafted that program. I was proud to push through. And then, the second part of that was there were monies that were reverting back into it. But I think you have to balance the individual need and the collective need. Now you enter into ARPA and the Fiscal Relief Fund. Happy to talk in more specificity about all of that, or more broadly about all of it, but just on hardship or on this, there are clearer regulations on what can be. And, again, it can't be a per capita payment. I've been told that other tribes have had to pay back with it's called recoupment from what happened under Treasury in the first round, in the CARES Act. And now we have a big push to provide that cash assistance to people. But one thing I'll say is there's a way to provide for some of the needs that people need assistance with without adopting a per cap model that doesn't seem to be legit under the laws and regulations right now. And then two, the Navajo Nation is completely unique on our land base and our people and our infrastructure needs. So, the Navajo Nation has been chronically underfunded to do any of the things that we need to do, and we have no income tax, right? Like, it's not like there's this big work ethic as a nation. I mean, communities and families and clans, yeah, we support each other with funerals, with, getting kids to basketball tournaments, whatever. But as a nation, I don't pay an income tax. You don't pay an income tax. You don't contribute really to the coffers of the Navajo Nation unless you're paying your sales tax. And that is a really small portion of our revenues. It's not a significant portion. So, this to me is a once in a lifetime opportunity to get my constituents running water and electricity, get them broadband internet access, improve their connectivity for cell towers. And the money is supposed to be in, response to COVID-19 pandemic. So I agree that we need maybe a pressure relief valve like we had under CARES, where we need to, give out money to folks, and, it'd have to be based on criteria. But the legislation that just passed, CJY 4121, that was my legislation. I'm really proud of it because we got 21 votes. So there's one delegate who, it was Delegate Charlene. So she was walking with that family, trying to raise awareness and get justice for, I think it was the main woman who's running, I think it was her aunt. I don't think it was her grandmother. I could be wrong there. So, she was doing that, and I respect her, so she didn't make that vote. And then it was Delegate Charles Newton who voted against it. So otherwise, everyone else voted for it, or they were the speaker, or they were on a walk, or they were Delegate Charles Newton. Yeah, so she voted against this most recent legislation, and she just did her, Facebook Live thing. I haven't seen it, but I've definitely gotten a lot of threats and pain and agony from that because of the way she's characterizing things. But so in there's a cap that says no more than 10% could be provided for like this sort of direct, just generalized cash relief to people until I think it's the second quarter of 2024. This money has to be spent or encumbered by December 31st, 2024. And, if we need that pressure relief valve again, we can provide a larger level of assistance for whatever we're not going to be able to get done by December 31st. But I have an obligation to the people who voted me into office to get them running water and electricity. And that's for the pandemic. That is for their quality of life. And that is for, I think, recognizing just their humanity. I love everyone. I love my people. That's why I'm in this position. I know the need, the immense need, because the federal government does not provide the appropriate safety net, social safety net for those who encounter hardship. And I'll leave it at that.
So the problem, as we all know, is that the land is very vast and it's rural. The houses are very spread out from each other. These houses are already dilapidated, a lot of them. And like, it seems like it'd just be easier if we just built subdivisions and gave everybody a new house so we didn't have to spend all the money to extend all the power lines and extend all the
Yeah.
infrastructure to broken down homes already. Why don't we just start building new subdivisions and give everybody
It's a great
house?
point, Adrian. I feel like you've
I
been
support that too.
listening to my my
Mhm.
live streams,
Yeah.
stealing my ideas. I'm just kidding.
Is that what you said?
The community doesn't want it. That's why. Try
No,
convincing like
Yeah, I mean,
They don't want a new
like you
house.
meant, like
no, they
what
don't
Slater
want the
mentioned, you
subdivision
have to go to the
style.
community and approach them in a respectful way and get them buy in and get their input first. Because if you come in from outside like us, they're not going to listen to us, you know, because you don't come from that community. So you got to get some people in that community to buy into what you're saying and have them interpret what it is that you're trying to impose. But I like that approach. I like the realize that the regionalization of the government reform. It's already a law there, but we just haven't implemented and moved forward with it. So I support the regionalizing our government, and like us, like here in the Southwest, Delcon will be our region. You know, and if we could put a lot of resources and a lot of infrastructure, a lot of projects towards the Delcon surrounding areas, then I think we could accommodate a lot of people who live off the reservation to come home. You know, and it sucks because you got the elders are at the local governments at the chapter houses, and that's going to be a generation probably going to sacrifice that. Like at least something's going to have to change in that area. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, look at like, I think people are really averse to that, like the subdivision or the apartments or things like that, because they're only, they only encounter that with NHA, right? And they view it as like, oh, there's like drug dealers and bootleggers, and that's where the gang activity and all that stuff is. And it's like, well, why do people get involved with that? I mean, why do people perform or perpetrate like crimes of desperation, as some folks call them? You know, it's because they don't have money and resources to do the thing. So they go out and they make their opportunity, they make their whatever, you know, and it's wrong. I mean, it is wrong, but I think we need to recognize like, okay, well, there's an economic aspect to this. If you have people who, you know, have a job, have a sense of like security, they're not going to be gangbangers. They're not going to be bootleggers. They're going to, you know, adopt that whatever, like white picket fence thing. So, you know,
You got a lot of faith in, you got a lot of faith in
Yeah.
people.
I was just gonna say a shout out to the old dragons and cobras. Keep it real, even though y'all got locked up, but you lived a hard life.
Even though you're all MPH now, with working for I don't know, program.
Privilege.
No, I think he makes a
dragon.
good point. I mean, one thing that I do realize that is missing in Navajo is like I've said it before. You guys don't believe me. There's a lack of community there. That's why the neighbors don't call the police, or that's why the neighbors don't yell at the person that's trying to break into their neighbor's house. It's kind of like it's his house. Well, it's not my house, so I'm not obligated to yell at that person. And I mean, that doesn't happen here. Like,
can I go back to the housing real quick though?
Yeah, go for it.
So, you know, it's something I've been working on for a minute now.
What, stripping NHA of their TDHE status?
So, you know, the main investments in housing on Navajo have been from NAHASDA funds and from the federal government, and that's all about income eligibility. So you have to be, you know, low income, you know, it's a percentage of the, what do you call it?
Yeah,
the poverty line to qualify. And so, you know, so you don't have investments or like this thinking at the local level of how do we develop these subdivisions or things like that. I think it's a lack of support from Central Window Rock to empower the communities. And what Herschel was talking about is regionalization. That's not necessarily consolidating the political aspect, but it's consolidating and distributing the resources so more of it can get out there. but you can't do it every chapter. It's just too expensive and cumbersome. So you need to go beyond those agency capitals, and you need to reach some other places. And so like I've been trying to talk, recently with my district and some other places. You mentioned the Alternative Form of Governments, Act, and also like the LGA. There are ways to be creative and say, well, we could designate some authorities to a regional group, and then maybe we take a quarter of our budget or a third of it, and we can hire that veteran service officer. We can hire, maybe some local police officers, things like that. Each of these chapters probably carry over anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000 every $100,000 to $500,000 every year. So why not just put that money to use at the regional level to hire some of those folks? It could be operating these graders that we bought at the chapters. And then the housing aspect, the big thing is, right, you can't own the land. So you can't have this traditional real estate and mortgage model. It's really cumbersome. And we as a nation have failed.
But people act like they own the land.
We do need to start acting like we own the land. It'll get there.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll touch on that in a second. But I think chapters are motivated, and these community land use planning committees, they do this. We want developer. They contemplate housing development or a mixed use development, but they don't know exactly how to bring it into reality, and they need that assistance, the technical expertise to do it. And I view that as my job to help bring those resources to my chapters and to like the forward-thinking people within our communities, that leadership who aren't necessarily political. Everyone should have a seat at that table. And I'm not going to go into all the details on how to do that. I have a lot of specific ideas, and I think maybe Delmar has heard some of them too. We're pretty like-minded on some of that. But on the permittee side, that if you look at why young people don't get engaged more, a lot of people feel boxed out of the chapter house. That the chapters have very limited authorities unless they're LGA certified, like they're able to handle their own affairs, have their personnel policies, do zoning or things like that. It's not really zoning, but if they turn into a township. And the people who have the power are permittees. So that's who you see at the chapter meetings. That's who you see at the permittee meetings. And you don't see young folks because they don't have like the actual material resources to negotiate within that context. And I think that's a big reason why young people aren't involved at the chapter level, is that it's set up to serve a particular
population.
Yeah, demographic. So what's the solution, Carl?
I would say, so you need infrastructure to just, I think, enjoy the rights of a 21st century life, and that's water, power, broadband. But in order to do that, I think that you should be able to overrule some, in some instances, or have a better process for overruling, someone who says, I don't want this going through my land. And I would say in way too many cases, it has nothing to do with the impact to the land. It's because of a family dispute. I don't want so-and-so living there or here. When you look at the housing crisis in this country and why there's a lack of affordable housing for people, a lot of the folks who study this say that it's zoning. What we essentially have here on Navajo is a regime that restricts and constricts development. And we need to have that reckoning at some point about who says you can do what where. Because I think Delmar could tell you about how like investments work, right? You want to kind of spread risk. You don't know where the market's going to be. You don't know where the market's going to be in a year or a couple of years, and you don't know who is going to take off. So if you have like an all of the above approach, you let people build here and there, one of those might end up being a really resourceful community or development, and it's going to help build that tax base, or they're going to figure out how to do all the things and balance them. And we need those opportunities here on Navajo.
So what's the solution, Carl?
So what's the solution? Jeez.
But it's good. Yeah.
That's a good content. It's good background.
We had a conversation at Res. By the way, the Reservation Economic Summit was not as lit as it would be if the 24th Navajo Nation Council was there. So I was a little upset.
Oh yeah, it would have been lit.
Didn't get to the level it could have been.
It'll be Navajos on the floor.
But we had a discussion with a banker and V and she does lending for projects, and we asked her, how do we land, how do we get money if we don't own the land and we can't use the land as collateral? And what was the answer, Delmar?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either, but she just said they're trying different things, and they're trying to
Where does she work?
she works at Native American Bank.
Oh, she did that.
Yeah, we're owners. Like the bank that Navajo Nation has ownership
Yeah.
in.
Well, we have a very
Yeah,
small
so
ownership,
that's
but
just a
Still
huge problem
ownership,
is that
Carl.
is
Damn.
that people, the land is in talk with the land users and permit holders, and then can't like you said, we can't build infrastructure sometimes, or we can't build housing, or we can't do certain things, and we just and then we can't borrow money off against the land. So it just seems like we're stuck, man. It seems like a very dim
Like,
future.
yeah, so that's where I think that like you need to have a different conception of like what development means. And I don't have that solution. I don't think anybody has that solution. And I'm very wary or skeptical of people who say it's exactly this way and this is how it's going to unlock this or that. Some of the steps we can take are organizing, say, your Round Rock chapter, or say your Rough Rock chapter, you withdraw 200 acres or 60 acres. I don't know. We'll say 100 acres. You withdraw 100 acres. You're going to develop 60 1-acre home sites on that land, and then like a school or community center space, a playground, some other things like that. And you would then withdraw the overall land by, say, a Section 17 corporation. It's a Indian or a tribal company that has a charter from the Department of the Interior, the federal government. That designation says, well, it's still a tribe that has ownership of that land, but then you use that entity to conduct the real estate transactions. So they're the ones who, when it's withdrawn, they would say, okay, we're going to do this sort of development, and we'll pre-clear the land to a certain environmental compliance, whatever needs to be done for that development. And then an individual could, pay that organization, or sorry, that company, and purchase that home or the land. And there would be a contract or an assurance between the person and that entity that you're going to have it in perpetuity or for like 99 years, and just keep going and going and going. I think that's one way to unlock credit and to collateralize things, because that's how commerce works in this country and so much of the world. That said, this like really intense like finance capitalism that exists in this country and that we've perpetrated against the rest of the world, and forced the rest of the world to adopt, and us here on Navajo, it's not the solution, but again, we need to keep imagining, but with the steps that we have to improve people's lives at every moment, I want to take those steps as long as it's not going to compromise, future generations in a totally horrible way. So I think that that's one aspect. I think that other tribes maybe have tried something similar. Then you can do it with real estate transactions. I mean, with commercial transactions too. And it's just one way to have one entity that can conduct these transactions instead of going through a Byzantine process from your regional business development office to the central division of economic development to the land department to the Department of Justice. I mean, there's just so many different steps, and it gets complicated. And if when bankers see that, right,
Yeah,
they want clarity and simplicity.
Yeah,
and they don't want to invest in that. Yeah.
Well,
I
the
mean,
They don't want risk. They don't want
yeah.
risk.
How do we
Yeah.
simplify this process?
The simple answer, guys, is to take those 60 acres, split it up into 1-acre lots, have the Navajo Nation use its big ass trust fund to back these 60 plots for $100,000. That's the base. The Navajo Nation says, hey, bank, if this person doesn't pay their mortgage, we'll pay you out of this big ass fund that we have. The bank says, okay, got nothing to lose, so I'll give you the money to build your home or do whatever. There, the bank gets paid off. Navajo Nation gets paid off. The lease, like he said, is for 99 years. the lease, we need to make the lease easier to transfer. So if Hirsch wants to buy one of these acre plots, Hirsch
too
could.
much.
Hirsch says, all right, I'll give you 110. Me, I want the lot too. I'm like, you know what? I'll give you 120. Bank.
Fucked up.
So, and then so now the person sells the plot. They've paid down the loan that Navajo Nation has given to them, $95,000. That's how much the principal balance is on the loan. They paid Navajo back $5,000. I'm giving them 120. They pocket $25,000. I get the home, and now I have this loan with the bank. Navajo Nation gets paid back its money because initially it had the $95,000, got paid back because the person that I bought this lease from now they're living in Phoenix. Navajo Nation gets paid
Boom.
back.
Well, I'll just tell you one thing
Sounds
that
easy.
reduces the
Sounds
risk to the
easy.
Navajo Nation.
Sounds so easy,
You just
but no
use
one-
a Section 184 loan, and you don't need to have the
Can
backstop.
we get a
be-
third of that
Yeah.
votes?
Because you still need credit to apply for the money, even if it's backed by Navajo Nation. You still need a down payment. So that's
Well,
what
no,
is
that's
missing.
so. I mean, are you familiar with Section 184 loans? It's like a
Yeah,
modified.
I mean, even if
FHA
it's
loan.
even if it's 2% or 3%, that's still most people don't.
No,
have
no,
that.
they don't. It's not based off of your credit score, your
Yeah,
credit worthiness.
it's not.
It's you submit like your employment stubs, and you get a bigger financial picture of what it is, and then it's based off of market rates. It's not based off of the say risk that the bank is going to calculate in there. And there are not that many lenders that do it. Now, I think the interesting idea is, well, what if you use the nation's non-trust lands to collateralize that? So you have Big Boquillas, you have all these ranches around the nation, right? And then Wolf Springs up in Colorado. Well, why don't I just say the bank's going to get an acre there, or you use that. There's all sorts of ways of doing securitization, and it's really interesting. I think there's a lot of ways we can do it on Navajo, but it's going to take someone like the president of the Navajo Nation to do this, because you need to bring all these resources together. I, as an individual delegate, I'm not anyone's boss. I can't command them, direct them to do this. I can ask them politely to do it. So you need a chief executive to have that vision and to articulate it and then actually do it. So.
Want to know my solution, Adrian?
Yes, I do.
I think the system's already set up for us to go back to our old ways. Let's just build fucking traditional hoe guns for everybody. There's
That's a great idea.
So that was the other thing that I've been working on. So there's
Eric took my idea too. Shit. Go ahead.
Well, no, it's not your. I mean, it's our culture.
I'm
it's our
just
people,
kidding.
right?
He's messing.
It's like, damn, you took
No.
my Tisto community. We talked about this last week. Go ahead, though.
So, like, the Chuska Mountains, the Chuska up there. What is the predominant resource? It's ponderosa pine. Now that fell out of favor in the timber industry. And, a lot of it is just, it's different stuff, Douglas firs, whatever, from the Northwest and other, in China, different types of timber. So there are companies that are trying to address forest management in the Southwest, in the Western United States, particularly the Southwest, in Colorado. And, Coconino County is, I think, it's the biggest ponderosa pine like reserve or whatever in the world, at the Coconino National Forest. To do the forest management, we're not really doing forest management. We kind of study, we kind of know we need to do thinning to preserve the forest life. We need to clear out the dead stuff that's fallen on the ground. And there's a proposal to do carbon credits and do that sort of forest management. We could do it according to Forest Stewardship Council guidelines. I'd like us to exceed that very, very highly, and then not do it in a way that it was really harmfully impacting the environment like NFPI did in the past, Navajo Forest Products Incorporated. So, we then use our own indigenous timber resource to produce cross-laminated timber panels. And there is kind of a mock-up for a hogan, like a 2-bedroom hogan. And the idea that I would really like to see the nation adopt with the ARPA funding to the extent that it's possible, because developing affordable housing and addressing housing is authorized under ARPA because of multi-generational homes and dense living environments where the transmission of the COVID-19 virus is just, it really increases that. So we need to address it. It's a public health response, and this would address the poor housing stock. You do the house manufacture. You set up the space for multiple lines. You focus on what's eligible under ARPA with a modest amount of room to grow. Then ideally down the line, you have Navajo Housing Authority, the Veterans Trust Fund, and other, say, subsidized housing with guaranteed purchases be those kind of tenant anchors to keep the lights on and these places working. And then you just make a big initial buy from ARPA. Then past that, you open it up to someone like me. I have a job and I want to build a home, but it's hard. I mean, we all know this. We probably want to build our home at our traditional homestead or where our lady's from. We want to support them. And if you don't have the time and effort, but like really the time to build your own home, and maybe you just don't have the family to help you do that, that's one of the reasons you don't have good housing stock. And so we need a way for someone to go to an entity, purchase a home, and ideally, a Hogan for a lot of us, and get it cited on your home site lease.
It's great.
Yeah, Hirsch.
So we got like
Yeah.
15 minutes left. Can you kind of go through what's the main thing you want to accomplish with ARPA? Like you talked about housing, but what else do you want to do?
Okay, I think the underlying infrastructure needs of the Navajo people should be addressed to the maximum extent possible, because we are not going to, well, I just believe these are fundamental human rights: a roof over your head, food in your belly, warmth, electricity, broadband, and healthcare. Like these are just the things that people deserve to have in this day and age. And we have an obligation to do that to the maximum extent possible. So getting water to people's homes, getting power to people's homes, getting an internet connection so that they can participate in school or in commerce in the modern economy. That's number one. And in that is also housing stock. So I think the council and the president are unified in addressing housing. And I've been working on an expenditure plan. I'm sure other delegates have too, to see that become a reality. So those are the top line things. Now there's responding to the COVID-19 pandemic that I'd say is just in the parallel category. That's the infrastructure side. The pandemic, we need to do some healthcare things, with testing, with deliveries. We need to do some social services stuff. We started off talking about really looking at what are going to be the outcomes from, say, the social determinants of health of a child over the course of their life if they are living in a particular environment that's economically depressed, that has maybe zero or single income household. Maybe there's it's multi-generational household. There's all sorts of things. So whatever we can do to address those disparities, but also have interventions where if we can't fundamentally change the infrastructure, maybe we can provide the mental health support, the counseling, the things that our people are lacking at this incredibly stressful time. And I really want to see that in there. Then say in another category, you have assistance, like economic assistance for people or cash assistance. If people are going to be out of work or they have to go back to work, but then the schools shut down again because of infections, we need assistance for childcare, and we need to be able to help people pay for taking care of their kids and figuring out what that means. That could be a cash assistance to a household, energy assistance, low-income heating programs, things like that. And then, we need to do some more with education, although a lot of the schools have received a lot of money in these acts separate from what came to the Navajo Nation. But there are some things that are explicitly not allowed, and that's like public safety investments and road investments. But stormwater and addressing water issues is something that you can invest in. So if you look at how these roads have washed out, that's a stormwater issue, and we can then modify some of these ideas in our mind about what we're going to do here. We won't do the whole road, right? But we can fix that area where there's the really bad washouts. And that should hopefully, make a modest improvement in people's lives that over time will increase the communal prosperity of us all.
Plus, I want to make an amendment to that. Let's add a vaccine mandate for tribal employees.
Ooh. like that.
I wonder if the president will move in that direction. The thing is, I think we're at like 82% of our eligible
we're pretty
population
high.
is
So it doesn't matter.
vaccinated.
Yeah, it's more the urban communities like Adrian, people like him, just trying to come back home. Maybe mandate you're not allowed to come back home without being vaccinated.
Vaccine passport.
Passport. There you go. We gotta get volunteers.
Hey.
Carl, one thing you didn't touch up on your importance of. I know you were very instrumental in regards to like helping the topics and
Yeah, I
medicine
know where you're
people.
going.
So give a little insight of content, like what would you do? Because I still think there's a lot more support that needs to be given from the government. You guys did a very poor job. I mean, you know that too, not just you, but I'm saying your colleagues, the government itself. And why is that? Why is that something that's so hard to help and support our medicine people, but yet we use it all the time in our whatever you guys want to do politically. You use our culture, you use our concepts, but yet when it came to COVID, I seen it firsthand that it just no support. It was very challenging.
I have a few things to say on that. That was another amendment and expenditure plan that I offered, that I worked on. And I'm proud for getting it passed. It included, in that legislation, I was pretty vocal in my criticism of the administration for their handling of that and a lot of other things. I stand by all of that criticism. I'm not going to say something that I don't believe in and that I don't think is justified with the actions. So what happened is that the council appropriated funding to, initially it was just the Diné Hatatli Association. It was not to the Diné Medicine Men's Association. And so that's because we had people we could work with there. You need to have an organization that you can work with. You can't just you need buy-in, you need folks, but this sort of central organization for our religious or cultural practices is kind of anathema to how we handled them. And a lot of people that I know and work with, they don't really believe in the sort of organized or the organization of Hatatli or of medicine people. It doesn't mean that a lot of them have had cursory interactions with them over the course of their careers or have been involved with them. So it's not whatever. So we got that. I think initially it was a $1.3 million expenditure plan. And, that's what we worked on. And that's what we were able to get. I think it was, a feasible amount for the nation to give to them. And a part of that was doing public health information, talking about, say, grounding what the virus is in traditional terms, in our traditional concepts of of medicine, and then also doing public education on our traditional life ways and herbal remedies, things that we can use to combat the virus and to heal ourselves. And there's some other stuff in there. And then it was also compensating Hatatlis for lost income. And there was an idea where you could subsidize maybe ceremonies for those who don't have the income to pay for them now. Those are really interesting conversations. We're saying well, it's the individual who's supposed to pay for the ceremony. That's a part of it, and there's a whole protocol there on how you do that. I loved hearing that. I feel like if you go back and listen to the debate, I was almost in tears trying to talk about this. But the fumbling came on the executive branch, and the entity that was tasked with doing this was the Department of Health, because this is a public health expenditure. This is a medical expenditure as a nation for this purpose. And they just couldn't get the money out the door. It was a lack of resources from them. It was a lack of resources within the controller's office and OMB on how to do this. It had never been done before, but it was in one of the first legislations we passed, and they still didn't get it out the door. So it kind of killed me. We passed another one. The president vetoed the first one and said that it was contentious by only singling out, I think, traditional folks and then one organization, and that it was divisive. I disagree with that. I think maybe he might walk back some of what he said on it. But the next one that we worked on was inclusive of Diné Medicine Men's Association, NAC, Diné Hatatli Association, and then Christians. There are no rabbis included in that. Or imams, but
rabbis.
So that one passed, but then they didn't get out the door. So I apologize. I misspoke. The first one was wanted and vetoed. The second one, they didn't get it out the door.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was very critical during the pandemic about them on this. And you go back and listen to our committee meetings. We have oversight over the Department of Health. I was very critical of a lot of the handling of the pandemic, and to this day. So yeah, it's my hope. I was talking to you. I think he's your delegate, right? Elmer Begay.
Yeah, Elmer.
Yeah, you're down there in Delcon. You know, we were talking today about how we do another expenditure plan when we had our leadership meeting with the president, and you know that's definitely going to be coming along. I think we all know that it's a necessary expense and that it's important for our collective, you know, public.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting that in that area, I think should be definitely some infrastructure plans to, you know, where do these Hitathis and medicine people, like, where do they gather? You know, there's got to be some kind of a place for them to gather, like a healing center, a cultural healing center that donation could provide for them, just as much as we give them hospitals, IHS. You know, they do have their 638s and they do have traditional healing services there, but it doesn't speak to the organizations that exist in Navajo Nation. And I think one of the organizations, the Zebanaga, the Death Nation, they have a land base there in Chinle. There's some infrastructure plans. So hopefully you'll be able to kind of accommodate their needs too as well. I think they're going to be moving forward with some proposals in regards to infrastructure plans there. So that's one organization that could be very supportive, and they're huge.
Yeah,
They're
I want to hear more about that. I definitely do. I didn't grow up with like the peyote ceremony, and I just have learned a lot about it recently in this past year with the family that I intend to marry into, and just getting more of an understanding and a respect and appreciation for it and its place, you know, within Navajo is something that I really appreciate. And I love when people are able to share, you know, in a respectful way or whatever. So, you know, we just need to make sure that it's an allowable cost, right? You know, that whatever it is an allowable cost. And then one thing I'd say was successful was getting those vaccines to Hitathis right off the top. In our committee, when we did consultation with IHS on what should be priority 1A, we were emphatic that they be there. And, you know, it worked. I mean, a lot of these folks just, they got the call and
they took it. Yeah.
And it was so important from a public health perspective, where like we believe we are born into this world and like endowed by the internet the way that we're supposed to be. Like our fingers, our skin, all of that, right? We don't tattoo ourselves. We don't do weird body modification. I'm not going to say weird. Shouldn't do body modifications and like things beyond just kind of piercing our ears.
Facial hair.
Dude, this is the only thing I can grow. And it took me the entire pandemic to grow. And I can't, my Navajo side just completely overwhelms the Jewish side. My dad can sneeze out a mustache, like, you know, whatever. But yeah, this is it on the mustache.
Yeah, Adrian had a little comment about that, so I don't know what he wants to say.
I was just saying that, you know, you just clean it up a little bit. That's all. Like trim it.
Oh,
he's just cleaning it up.
I think, you know, but whatever. I'm growing mine out. You inspired me.
It's the pixelation. It's the pixel. It's really clean over here.
No, okay.
No, but one thing I'll tell you, I don't know if you can see the scar. I got in a bike accident or crash a month ago or a couple months ago, and I'll show you guys the photo, maybe somewhere else. But I busted my face, and you can see my nose is now a little crooked. I had to get a procedure to like fix my nose. This whole area was just like scraped off, and the very top of the
How long ago was that?
right, this was the beginning of July or the end of June.
Yeah, it's about that time.
How come we didn't hear about it on Navajo Times?
How come we didn't hear about it in Janine News? Oh, we didn't do our Janine News segment. Guys.
Yeah.
Damn. We have
Do
to
it.
go that too.
I'll tell you what's what's not.
Carl, tell us the Janine News that's going on. Just something, a little piece for the listeners.
Actually, before we do that, what hurt more, the actual accident or the hospital bill that you have?
Oh God, yeah, I did post about that. I don't post about a lot of things like that, or like complain about my colleagues or talk down on them or whatever, like other people do. But the bill is, whew, I mean, I like to think I'm a responsible person. I'm in control of my finances. I know what I'm doing, but it's a wake up call because as a young, what do they call it? Like young invincibles, right? We're out of the healthcare system for the most part. We don't have to go in unless it's an emergency. I am a strong believer in universal healthcare and Medicare for all. So just having that rude awakening of like, oh, $1,700 for a hospital visit after insurance, that's ridiculous. It's $500 to get the sutures. I tore up the entire inside of my mouth from like up here back to there.
Yeah.
And
Was it a motorcycle bike or just a bicycle?
Cycle. He was on a
no, mountain bike. Yeah, Matt's mountain bike. Getting extreme.
Hardcore, man. That's extreme. That's some X Games right there.
I'm in favor of universal health care. I think you can do it if you start right now with everyone born right now and not prior to this. That's the only way it works. Only way it's economical.
Yeah, tell us some genetic news. I want to hear
Yeah,
the
we need
most
a little bit
toxic
of
council
genetic news
delegate.
for- yeah,
Who's your most
exactly.
toxic colleague? We want to know. I'm just kidding.
What they say?
I think you know, and I'm not going to comment on it. No, I'm
whose
just kidding.
LDA was trying to fight you?
No, I thought you guys were going to say something, and then I would comment on it. I just made
Oh,
something
okay.
up.
What I heard in executive session during the no, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna say.
Wait, Herschel, were you at the Rough Rock chapter planning meeting on Sunday?
No, you know what? I actually missed it. But I'm gonna be on the next chapter meeting. I keep missing because I'm on so many meetings.
Yeah,
No,
the
I
last-
was on the planning meeting. I was on the planning meeting. There you go.
So
I
you,
was
you
on
did
that.
make, yeah, I'm just saying there's a planning meeting.
Yeah, I'm at the planning
Yeah,
meeting.
I got engaged the night before, so
So many
No,
meetings. You're not even
I've
doing it.
been on 55 chapter meetings in the last 3 months. Very interesting. Very interesting. Like some of them, like this is just our genetic news right here. Some of them very professional. Some of them just they need to regionalize them. They need to cut their funds and just merge them into the system somewhere else. They can't even get a forum. Some of them. Some of them
Quorum?
very rude. They couldn't get a quorum yet, and some of them are just very rude. They just don't have any concepts of leadership. It sounds like they're just there just to be there to fill in a position. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth. And I'm this is probably my third go around of chapter houses from like what we're doing in our office, and it's very interesting just to understand.
Hey, we're
the
not supposed to
landscape.
shame people.
I'm not ashamed. It's the facts. See, I'm not afraid to say the
It's
facts.
his third time at the chapter meeting. They still don't want him there.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking within my job. I've been there for the last 6-7 years, and the third time around, it's because I've been to every
And
chapter
you still
house.
can't get them to sign on to your plan. It's time to
It's
just give
hard,
it up, man.
bro.
It's time to
It's
just give it up.
It's different.
No, I
It's
want to
different.
give you mad props. I am so supportive of what you're doing, Herschel.
You
I
got to go
mean,
door to door.
I just if there's a young person right now listening and you're gonna go party with your friends or whatever, and they offer you a smoke, just don't do it. Whatever
Just
you
don't
do,
do it.
don't do it. It is the worst thing you can do with your life.
Yeah.
is develop it.
Unless there's a girl there that thinks it's cool, then do it.
Yeah, unless you want to
No,
sell.
I'll talk about my experience. I struggled with nicotine
Damn.
early in it's like very straight edge, because I was trying to get recruited to play lacrosse, play D1 lax, and I was like, oh, if I do anything, I'm going to ruin my chances. And of course, it wasn't any choice I made. It was I was playing on this kind of all-star club team thing. And I tore my knee up and kind of ruined my D1 chances, so I had to play D3 lacrosse. But it's what it is. I still could have played D1. Shh, just kidding.
Coach has his
I moved-
favorites.
Yeah, coach has his favorites. Put me in, coach. No, I wanted to be out west, so I went to Colorado College, and I was blessed to have those years minus some of that I did because I was closer. But the thing I would say is just don't do it. You can't get addicted if you don't start, and
There you go.
It's a gateway drug.
just don't start.
Gateway
don't start.
drug. It's the most addictive substance drug or substance abuse or drug in anything, even more powerful than meth. People
You
don't
start
know
with cigarettes, then next thing you know, you're sucking dick for your next
Because it's
hit
so
of
socially
crack
acceptable.
rock.
that. Stop! What the fuck did you say? Don't listen to the Dardell. I don't know what you meant by that. But shout out to you. Thank you for supporting us. I hope it does get, and so, but I'll give you some content behind it. We have overwhelming support of this legislation, so hopefully it
Just
does
not
go.
publicly or by
Just
anyone
not
that will
publicly,
say anything
yeah.
that he can substantiate.
No, I think you do.
I mean,
Wait, so
if we're
wait,
gonna,
when Herschel said when he said forum, I was just like, man, he has been spending a lot of time at chapter houses because you hear a completely different version of English and Navajo at the chapter house. It's stipend,
oh
physical
my
year,
God, yeah, my
forum.
bad.
What's some other ones?
That's a new one. Forum,
Forum.
like as in quorum. We don't have
Yeah.
forum.
Yeah, I said forum for quorum, yeah, but it's just a weird, different. And like I mentioned, some are very professional. I'm not degrading all of them, but there's some of them that just need to close shop and something.
It's how the
needs to happen
sausage is
there.
made.
I don't know.
Sausage.
How the
I
blood
love
sausage is
sausages.
made.
I love sausages.
Oh, the blood sausage? Yeah, you can leave them there.
Yeah, let's
but-
touch.
All right, any
But
shout
yeah,
outs?
that's
Last minute shout outs.
Shout out
guys.
to
We gotta
Carl.
wrap it up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Shout
for
out to
coming
Carl,
on
man.
here.
Shout out to you,
If
brother.
you didn't notice, we're on our best behavior. We even skipped over my my unsolicited dick pic over the weekend.
Yeah,
But
we didn't even.
yeah,
that's
but
the
we
genuine
have
news we didn't talk about.
we
was the
have
dick pics.
delegates that be doing that. Do you want to elaborate on that, Carl?
Oh,
for the
yeah,
listeners,
what's up?
I'll explain. We'll get to that later on.
Well, it
Next
was not.
episode.
It was not that same situation. I guess. what I
Oh,
would say.
okay. All right.
I
We'll go into
look, I'm
executive
not.
session for
I don't
that.
want to speak. God, when that situation happened, I was working in the speaker's office, and I think
Oh,
what
yeah.
people have interpreted
You had to
as
write the
happening
press
is
release.
not.
Uh,
There was no. There
Are
was
you
nothing
slut
else.
shaming?
Hey man,
Also,
don't shut slut shame him.
So you're a delegate.
For
Have you
dick
stayed at
slave.
what's that the hotel in Flagstaff, like American Inn or
Little America. I've never
Little
stayed
America?
there.
Okay. So you I heard that delegates are supposed to steal TVs from there. That's like their rite of passage.
Hey,
What?
Well,
God, I don't know
long-
anything.
A
Well,
long time
everyone-
ago.
everyone stays at Twin Arrows now, so I
Do you
think
remember
was
that,
a long
Hirsch?
time ago.
One,
I think
one
that's
former
Jeanette News
delegate-
right there. I think it had to do with the 88 council that had some kind of there was a gang of the 88 that was one of their
Gang of the
one of their subcommittees that they had to do that as initiation for their their passage to being a council delegate.
Yeah,
That's
what I'm
Jeanette
referring to
News.
is-
Jeanette News.
apparently, or not apparently, allegedly a delegate stole a TV from one of those hotel rooms.
Wow.
They just
Yeah, I mean,
charged
I
it-
have
they
heard
just
some
charged it to the tribe.
very, very horrible stories about past leadership, and
Current leadership.
I'm not going to comment on current leadership right now.
Just kidding.
And also to the listeners, we're going to be starting a new segment. We're going to be breaking down the common tropes of male masculinity. So we were supposed to get into the bad
I thought
boy.
we do that every day. We do that every episode.
No, we're breaking this down. Like we tend to go over a lot of things like really quick. So I was thinking we just focus on one thing. So next time we're focusing on the bad boy archetype. So
Carl, you
break
want to
that down.
shout out anybody?
I forgot this would be a part
Don't
of
you
this.
have like a fiance or something?
Yeah, I want to shout out my future wife, my future baby
Okay.
mama.
Hey,
your baby.
shout out to her. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do I be on WW right now or what?
Yeah,
Or
man.
what?
Yeah,
Simp it
express
out,
yourself.
man.
That's the reason why we have this pod is because males can't be able to express themselves. Like,
Yeah.
He's probably looking
Yeah,
at her.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
so go ahead, be a sip.
No, I'm really excited to take this step in my life and to really share a life with someone, and I want to respect their privacy right now. I'm in public. She's willing to be with a public person, but building something new from two humans is awesome, and getting to be a part of her family is something that I really look forward to, and I want to be there to support all of them.
Can
to
I
the
ask?
extent
Can I
that
ask how long you guys were together dating?
Something you never ask a native couple, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's always different
It's
different
like,
links.
what?
Oh, yeah, it's like- Yeah, she probably has a different
including the
answer.
off.
than
off
you.
days?
Yeah.
The off days?
All right, that's cool.
We met in 2019. Is that right? When I actually worked in the speaker's office, and
Damn, that's
she had
pretty.
worked before the government, and then
At Twin Arrows?
I'd say when we got like very serious was, or when we got more serious was like during my campaign, and then I would say the beginning of 2020, like January 2020, is when it was like we're full bore together, and yeah.
He's like, if I win, babe, I'm gonna be with you.
So how did you ask? Did you get down on one knee?
So the first time,
Oh, the
so
first
I
time.
no,
Yeah, the
it was.
first
I'm gonna tell you why. So I don't know if she's gonna appreciate this, but so
She's not listening. Don't
She's
worry.
not listening.
She's not
Yeah,
listening.
she's
That's
not
right.
listening.
It's for guys.
Yeah.
Well, we were at a booth at a very nice restaurant, and I thought that we were going to be at like a normal table, and so it'd be easy to just get down on one knee. And then like right next to the booth, it's like we were kind of removed from people, but it was also where people walk by. And I was like, how do I like pull her around to like the side of the booth so that I can get on one knee? But then the booth was a little bit elevated, so I was like, okay, it was in the moment, it was perfect, and you know, I just did my little intro and ask her if she would marry me and make me the happiest man on the planet. But she has a daughter, and I wanted to demonstrate my commitment to her daughter as well, and kind of recreate almost the proposal. And so we had another special meal the day after, and I told her I had a surprise for her. And so I gave I had a new ring too, for my fiance, and then I gave a ring to her daughter, and kind of explained what was
Sweet.
going on.
Nice. It's very cute. That's very.
Yeah.
She
That's
thought
how
we
you
were
do it.
married right then, and I had to explain like,
Oh.
no, like we're not. But she had told me like, oh, I want you guys to get married, and I want like a little brother or something, or a little sibling. So
Nice.
once
You
I
better
got
get
that permission
busy.
a couple of months ago, I was like, okay, now that I have permission from the boss, I can.
There you go. She's the
Damn,
boss.
she's the boss.
Yeah.
How many kids are you guys gonna have?
It's a tough question.
You
I
didn't
think we
talk about
both-
that?
No. It's not something I really want to go into. I haven't talked to her about talking about
Yeah,
these
it's
things
her
publicly,
decision.
Yeah,
so-
let them talk about it before he answers to
No, I
us.
know.
No, I mean,
Shit.
like we've talked about it. Like she and I have
Oh,
talked
okay.
about it, but I'm not really comfortable talking too much about
Oh,
our
okay.
Yeah.
personal
No, that's a really good story. I mean, that's a beautiful story in a sense. Like, so take notes, Neff. You guys out there listening, how you do it, man. You gotta get permission from the kids first too. I think that's one thing that's badass.
Hers
No,
will be
you
like,
you take
"You wanna
notes,
do
Hirsch.
this?
You're the one that's like, I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
marry a
All
girl
right.
that has kids already.
You
So
want-
I'm gonna
do
marry
this
a
or
girl
no?
with at least 5 kids, and I'm gonna ask all of them.
you gotta buy 5 rings.
She's not gonna have
memes,
5
like,
rings.
don't you have 3 kids? Like, yeah, and I wish they were yours.
Hey,
That's a
There
good
you
one.
go. That's a good one. Let me write
Let's
that
go
down.
do this, Dan.
Let's go do this, Dan. Well,
All right, guys.
All right.
We're over our
Adrian,
time
before we
limit
go,
here.
did you get down on one knee when you had to ask?
Me?
Yeah,
Oh no.
you're too tall, huh?
You went on both
Hey.
knees. Hey.
I sat down.
He's like, come here, sit in my lap.
No.
Oh,
I just
God.
said, let's go. Let's go then.
Let's go then. All right.
right,
Well, I
guys.
don't have any other questions.
Yeah.
All right.
We're out of time too. But Carl, man, thanks, dude.
Yeah,
Appreciate you
shout out
coming
to
on.
everyone. Shout out to the listeners. Shout out to Courtney. Go buy some corn from her. Shout out to everyone that keeps supporting us. Shout out to J Man, all our friends. So
Can I do a quick plug?
yeah, go
Yeah,
for
go
it.
for it.
I just want to let people know. Oh darn! It says my internet connection's unstable. I have a
You're good.
delegate Facebook page, and on there I have like my email address, my phone number. If you have an issue that you think I could help you with, I welcome you to contact me. I'll try to do what I can.
Yeah.
And I think you should demand that of your leadership, whether it's a
Yeah.
council delegate or your chapter official. So
Yeah, that's great, man. I appreciate you being available. I'm gonna be contacting you tomorrow, actually. Talked about something.
Yeah, me too.
Some
Gonna be contacting
ideas.
you probably after this pod. I'm just kidding.
I'll be blowing up your DMs. right, guys.
Hey, I'm gonna send you a
Yeah.
picture, an
Hey,
unsolicited one.
I want you to know what you think about it. I want your honest opinion. Hey.
But thanks, Carl. You're more welcome to come back anytime you want, man. Like, even when you wait, one more other question. I don't know if you're gonna answer this, but you plan to run again for position for the next?
yeah, I've sort of made that known among people who ask me that. I definitely intend to run for another term. I think that
Nice.
I'm doing well for my communities, and I really want to continue the progress on a lot of the projects that are moving forward. So, I think that continuity would be really important in the middle of this ARPA and fiscal relief fund stuff. And if you look at the people, who do
Oh, you cut out. But
Yeah.
what we're doing.
we support you, man.
Yeah, we support you. If you need any campaign, we'll throw you out there, and you're more welcome to jump back on here. And
The
I
only
think the
reason
Twin
why
Arrows-
Hirsch is asking is because Hirsch wants to say, "I'll see you on that council floor."
hey, I'll
Hirsch,
see you what
Hirsch wants to
committee
be
you can
your,
on.
LDA.
LDA.
I'll be your LDA. I'm gonna marry into somebody at Saley. Hey.
He already attends 55 chapter meetings and does nothing. He's the perfect LDA.
Hey, messed up. All right, guys. You guys have a good night.
All right. Yeah, I don't do much, Don't count on me, but I'll do my best. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm
I was
done.
sure Hirsch. He's a good job. All right. See you guys later.
Yeah. You guys.